On left downwind, turn base now. Tundra.
Got traffic there.
Glasser, just take it up to the departure end of the runway, then a left turn into left downwind. Cessna over the threshold, coming up on the white dot, outer beyond the white dot, left turn first available. I got a high wind coming up on about a half-mile final, clear to land, outer beyond. Traffic on the left face, you're following a Cessna down, low off your left. Square it up just a little bit, and then we're going to get you in. Start your descent, though. Start your descent on the base. Traffic on final, give me follow on base. Base traffic, start turning toward the numbers now. High wing coming up on quarter-mile final, take it all the way down to the green. Cessna taxiing on the green, expedite down to the next hard surface. Get me some speed, there you go, 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 go fast. This is going to be good. I got traffic on a mile final. You're following traffic ahead and to your right. High wing coming up on the threshold. Take it all the way down to the green dot.
5 Charlie Sierra, 2 mile final.
A mile final, turn north, and we're going to just make you, we're going to bring you back around. Jet traffic's coming up on about a mile and a half final. Runway 9er clear to land.
Okay, all right. Let's listen up, guys. If you're on final for runway 9, I want you to offset to the left. I got a jet that's landing on runway 9. The jet's cleared to land runway 9 if you can make it. If not, just continue straight ahead. It looks like you're going around for the jet. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Oh, we had one right in front of us, sir.
Tail dragger. Let's see. Well, we got a tricycle. Tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tail dragger, down to the green dot, then a left turn. Short final here. You cleared land on 9 all the way to the white dot. Go down to the white dot. Find somebody to follow out here. Canard, just come to the runway, and I might have to just send you around. That'll be fine. And for the jet, you just want to stay in this pattern, or you want to go back out for an instrument approach?
Stay in a pattern, Charlie Sierra.
All right, just stay with me here for a minute. And my tail dragger, let's see, over the numbers. Go down to the green. And Canard's going to have to go around. Canard, go around. Canard, go around. Canard, go around. And my high wing here over the runway, keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. You do not descend. Do not descend. You got a fast guy behind you. Do not descend. There you go. Keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. As soon as the guy behind you gets slowed down, I'm going to put you down. So keep it airborne. The one that just passed the white dot, make a left turn on the hard surface. All right, my high wing tail dragger, you can put it down now. You can put it down now. And Charlie Sierra, let me get you about a mile off. Let's see, Charlie Sierra, I lost. There you are. Make a left-hand turn. I'll try to resequence you here on the downwinds. We'll see how it looks. Short final, you're clear to land runway 9 on the white dot. Clear to land on the white dot. There you go. And the tricycle left on the hard surface and follow the flagman. Welcome. Thanks for being part of the show. And let's see, just find somebody to follow on the final. And as you get close to the runway, if it's not going to work, we're going to send you around and then try to resequence you. Now, who else got sent around that's not back on the downwind? The Canard?
Yeah, Canard.
All right, Canard, there's a Gulfstream up there that went around, too. I just lost sight of him. But you're going to make kind of a left-hand turn and stay low. I think Charlie Sierra, what's your altitude?
3,200.
Okay, that'll be fine. Just maintain VFR. I don't know what else is up there above you. Probably most everybody's down here. So just make a left-hand turn. We'll try to get you back here.
Canard's got the jet in sight.
Okay, the RB, maybe an RB-10, whatever, you're on final. Keep your speed up and go all the way down to the, aim for the green dot for me. Actually, keep your speed up. There's a guy behind you. Aim for the green dot, and I'm sure that's plenty of room for you to land on runway 9. You're clear to land on runway 9. Number 2, you're going to go down to the white dot. Follow the white dot. Actually, you know what? That's 1,500 feet. You're going to land at the white dot. The spacing looks adequate here. 2 guys on final. You're kind of tight there. Keep each other in sight, and you're going to aim for the white dot. If it's not going to work, we'll come up with a plan B. We might have to send you around. The second guy behind you out there in about a 2-mile final. Are you slow enough to be able to follow that guy in front of you? You need to go around. Well, I probably shouldn't ask that because I had about 5 guys answer me, so I should know better than that after 35 years, you would think, right? All right, so let me see. The guy who's number 1, it's number 1. What kind of airplane is he? An RV type. All right, RV type. Keep it airborne for me. Keep it airborne. And I got a fast guy behind you. The number 2 guy over the trees there. Go ahead and put it down on the numbers. Put it down on the numbers. My first guy just coming up on the numbers at the over the grass at the numbers. I want you to keep it airborne, please. I got a fast guy behind you. Keep it airborne. White RV, white dot. White RV, white dot. My guy over the numbers. Yep, keep it going. There you go. Just it looks like a blue low wing. Keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. You got a fast guy behind you. Don't descend yet. Don't descend yet. Wait until he gets it under control and gets off the runway. My guy landed. Make a left turn on the hard surface. Can you do that?
Canard, request a base.
All right, hold on. Watch that guy on the runway. Watch the guy on the runway. Turn left. Turn left. Turn left to clear the runway. There you go. Charles here, they made a fantastic call for you here. I'm going to put that Canard, though, probably in front of you once I'm able to find him. Canard, start your base. Yeah, I see you. Canard, man, you are fast. You beat the Gulfstream. What are the odds? All right, Canard, make a left-hand turn. Come, well, you guys do 100 knots when you're sitting on the ground. Just make a left-hand turn and come directly to 9. Runway 9, clear to land. Charlie Sierra, base your discretion. And I think I might have a twin out there, but that's all right. Charlie Sierra, we're not going to send you back around. So Charlie Sierra, go ahead and start the base. And Canard, let's see. Actually, man, you guys are coming out of nowhere. I see the Canard now. Okay. Charlie Sierra, go ahead and slow it up and square the turn to final here. Everybody join the final here, and Charlie Sierra, I'm going to try to make this work for you. Traffic over the runway, put it down there. Put it down, runway 9, clear to land. And my Cub type, keep it up to the green dot. Green dot's good. Go on, keep your speed up. And turn left onto the hard surface here. Short final, go down to the white dot now. You got traffic rolling out. Cub, go ahead and land. Cub, go ahead and land. That's fine. And my little guy here on the white dot, keep your speed up. Keep your speed up. Keep your speed up. Make a left-hand turn on the hard surface. And it looks like my twin's going to have to go around here probably. Yeah, twin go around. Twin go around. Twin go around. Yeah, there. Sorry about that. That's snuck right up on us here. And the other tricycle there, turn left on the hard surface and look for the flagman. Cardinal all the way down to the green dot. Cardinal all the way down to the green dot. I got 2 Canards. You're going to land on the threshold. 2 Canards, both of you. Land on runway 9. And Charlie Sierra, you know what? Oh, man, I hate to do that. All right, Charlie, my 2 Canards offset to the left. I'm going to send you around again. The 2 Canards go around left side. Keep each other in sight, please. Go around left side. Charlie Sierra, you're cleared to land runway 9.
Clear to land now, Charlie Sierra.
Go ahead. You know what? You're going to have to go around too. Cessna over the runway, go around. Cessna over the runway, go around. Cub, I need you off the runway. Cub, I need you off the runway. Get in the grass if you have to. Cub, I need you off the runway. Left in the grass if you have to. There you go. The Canards are going around. All right, Charlie Sierra, here's another part of the show. I guess you're going around as well. All right, Cessna, that's fine. Put it down and make a left-hand turn. You're going to have to go into the grass. Charlie Sierra, continue straight ahead. Canard, you're going too fast to land. That's fine. Just continue straight ahead. All right, Charlie Sierra, let me see. I got a guy out there heading to your left. I have no idea what that is. I don't think he was one of my go-around. It was the twin Cessna I sent around. I should have known. All right, twin Cessna, go ahead and make the left-hand turn. Re-enter the downwind. I think Fisk is going to help clean us up. Charlie Sierra, you can turn crosswind the crosswind your discretion. Canard, can you follow that twin off your left? Twin on a mile final. You're cleared to land on 9 at the white dot.
For UG, Roger. There's the former prison inbound.
All right, hold at the prison.
Hold the prison.
Yeah, and the Canard, are you going to be able to follow that twin? Do you see him? Okay, that radio's not readable at all, so just follow that guy. Number 2 Canard, follow the other Canard. That'll just work out perfect. If you guys keep each other in sight, that's going to work. I got 2 twins on final. You're both cleared to land. And aim for the white dot, please. Keep each other in sight. The T-tail twin on the numbers. T-tail twin on the numbers. And the other guy, you go down to the white dot. And, aim closer to the green dot. It's fine.
Charlie Sierra is turning downwind.
Yeah, Charlie Sierra, continue on the downwind. We'll try to find a hole for you here.
Oh, we have anybody in front of us. It's not going to work.
Welcome to Oshkosh.
Yeah, I know.
All right, twins are looking good. My go-around guy, that's great. Turn left and come direct to the white dot. And clear to land, runway 9 on the white dot. That's perfect. Rolling out, make a left turn into the grass. It's past the orange dot. There's flagmen out there. Make a left turn into the grass. Seth on a 1.5 mile final. And let's see. You see that traffic heading to your left turn in the base?
Yes, sir.
All right, can you follow me?
We can do right 360.
No. That's the last thing I want you to do. Just come over to the right side a little bit. Just keep him in sight, but stay to the right. Stay to the right. Stay to the right. Just kind of parallel the runway there. And the low wing, I believe you're the guy that went around. Caution for that Cessna. He's actually, looks like he might be in front. Just use caution for the helicopters there. There you go. That's fine. And my twin, yeah, you're cleared to land, runway 9. You're going to overtake that guy. My Cessna on final, you're going to have to go around too. Just continue upwind. Cessna on the Cessna, you're going to go around. I got a faster guy below you that's going to land, so don't descend. Just continue straight ahead. Don't turn downwind or crosswind until you get up probably toward the shoreline. My twin, again, you're cleared to land.
Crosswind for Charlie Sierra.
Charlie Sierra, go ahead and start the base. We're going to try to part the seas for you. That Fisk didn't cut them off, but there's still a bunch of arrivals coming in here, so we'll see where we can see what it looks like when you get here.
All right.
Charlie Sierra, there's a Cessna there in about a 1.5 mile, 2 mile final. Cessna on about 2 mile final. Just go around. I want you to climb up to 1,800 feet. Just fly down the runway. There you go. Traffic is touching down on the runway. We need a left turn on the hard surface just as soon as you can. We do have jet traffic coming inbound. Cessna, once again, the short final, A firm. Hold that 1,800 feet. Yep, Canard, that's coming up on short final. I need you to keep it airborne all the way down to the white dot. Left turn that first intersection. I do have jet traffic inbound, and we're not going to send them around again. Traffic coming up on the green dot. Left turn that hard surface. Charlie Sierra, runway 9, clear to land.
Clear to land 9, Charlie Sierra.
I got another Cessna about a mile final. I have permitted 1,800 feet, fly upwind. I got jet traffic's going to pass below you. He's going to land. You are going to be at 1,800 feet. We'll find a hole for you later. Second Canard, short final, go around. Canard, short final, go around, go around, go around. Canard, short final, go around.
Going around.
Canard is rolling out, making a left turn at the orange dot. Left turn at the orange dot, the one that's going. There you go, there you go. Canard, take it up to the approach, or correction, departure into the runway, then a left crosswind into the downwind.
Yeah, my Cessna that first got sent around, go ahead and make a left-hand turn to the crosswind. You're going to have Canard traffic faster, but he's going to be behind it to your left. So go ahead and make that left-hand turn to re-enter the downwind. There you go.
All right, Canard, if you can make that turn to the downwind, do it now. Perfect. Cessna that's making the left turn, firm. Once you hit the departure and you hit the shoreline, make the left-hand turn, come back into the pattern. Canard, we're going to make you number 1 behind the jet. Charlie Sierra, you're clear to land. Thanks for the patience.
Clear to land. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Performer still at the prison, 2,500.
Hold at the prison. Cessna, if you have a Cessna and you're on upwind, beyond the runway, turn crosswind. There's a Cessna midfield on upwind. I just want you to take it up a little bit. There's another one down the line. Charlie Sierra, left turn the first hard surface. Thanks very much for the help. Canard, make the turn. Bring it right to the numbers. Runway 9 are clear to land.
Rudder trim. Check. Flaps. Check. Flight control. Check. Air Force. Ready for takeoff.
Edge 224. ECU swap. ECUV. Engines checked. ECU swap. Auto. IFR departure clearance obtained. Captain brief complete. Line procedure. Approach. Stop bars. Check clear. Altimeter. Check set. Transponder. Set. DJ as required. Lights as required. Ready for power check.
Flaps. Check. Flight control. Check. Air Force. Ready for takeoff.
Hello and welcome to day 3 of I'm not sure what that was. Anyway, so what have we got tonight? We've got a visit with the BGA, Avionics, Garmin, Fantasy Hangar, where we're looking at cost-effective aeroplanes. We're talking to Paul Goodell, the flying adventurer, a super inspirational guy. Steve Hicks on home building, Steve Boxall on gyrocopters, and some other stuff as well. And we'll probably have a little chat about a few bits and pieces. So there you go. But of course, we have to thank the sponsors because, frankly, without them, this wouldn't happen and we wouldn't be here. So, Avionics, Bose, Garmin, Cirrus, Leading Edge Aviation, Mistral, Poulies, Bristol Ground School, and Textron Aviation. Big thank you. There are a whole load of other supporters. Please take time to go and look at the exhibitor pages on the website live.flyer.co.uk and support the people who support us, who help us to bring this and other live stream, magazine, and all sorts of other content to you. So thank you very much for that.
Hello and welcome to this very quick guide on the Flyer Live website. As you can see, if you go to live.flyer.co.uk, you get to the website for the whole week's Flyer Live. It's pretty simple. At the top, watch live. You can pop in here. This is the best place to watch it. You can see the live stream, which is from YouTube, and obviously you can join in, ask a question, and see whatever you need from there. Then there's the schedule. You got one of these for each day with everything that's going on. I'm not entirely sure how long that will survive before things get changed and move around. Then we got the really important page for exhibitors. Thank you very much to all of these people who supported Flyer Live this week. So please feel free to pop in, see these people, get the information you need, ask lots of questions, and find their contact details and all sorts of other bits and pieces. So please take time to go check out the videos. And lastly, catch up. So after each day, we'll be uploading the previous day's content. So if you've got nothing better to do and you miss one day, you can always watch it again. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the week, and goodbye.
All right, so before we get going with the news, I just wanted to remind you about some of the stonking competitions we've got on. There's the Poulies competition where you can win a Bose A2 Bluetooth headset. You can win, what else can you win? You can win a Garmin D2 Air watch, and you can win £250 worth of Poulies vouchers. What am I talking? Excuse me. Sorry about that. All you need to do to enter is to head over to the Poulies page in the Exhibitor Centre on the website. And if you look on the right of the Exhibitors page, there's an ad. Click on that and you can enter. There's also a Garmin competition. So there are two Air 660s up for grabs, plus another D2 Air watch. And to enter that one, you need to head over to the Garmin page where you'll find the question and an email address to pop us an email with the right answer, and we'll see if you can win one of those. And last but not least, a stonking offer. If you are not a member of the LAA, and you probably should be regardless of what you fly, there has never been a better time to join than this week. So for new members only, instead of the £60+ that it costs to join the LAA, you can get membership for £30. Just call the office in Tor Weston, tell them you heard about it on Flyer Live. I promise they won't think it's a joke, and they'll take your money for a new membership, and you get 12 magazines. It's a bargain. I mean, why wouldn't you do it? It's not as much of a bargain as Flyer Club, which is £7.50 a quarter. But anyway, there you go. We're going to get on with the news shortly. That's enough of me.
So, big news story for today is the latest issue of the magazine is live. So that's the June issue of Flyer. Is literally, it was out to club members this afternoon, and it'll be available on free circulation to the rest of the world from 9 p.m. So if you're looking for an email for that, check your inbox, and obviously check flyer.co.uk for latest links. But you'll find a fantastic article about going to bush flying school. There's something else on the Cirrus piston to jet transition training, a brilliant flying adventure from Paul Cadell, who's coming up later. Some great stuff in Top Gear, all the columns, plus £57 of landing fees for June if you're a member of the Flyer Club.
Hey.
Okay, so in the real news, Airbus have revealed today some of the secrets of their racer technology demonstrator. I've called it the racer biplane because look at that, it's got a pair of wings out the side. So the idea behind this is that they first showed something like this in 2017, and since then they've been manufacturing bits and pieces and doing design stuff, and now they're actually building the real thing. It's going to fly at 400 kilometers an hour. That's pretty much, that's quite a lot faster than regular helicopters. They usually fly at around 260 maximum cruise speed. So it's quite a lot faster. The idea is also to be greener, of course, that's the buzzword these days, And so once it's taken off and is in the cruise, it can shut down one of its 2 engines and burn less fuel. Somehow they've managed to persuade the EU to admit it into the Clean Sky program because of that very thing. And therefore they get a lot of subsidies and funds and things like that. There is a British element here, despite Airbus being very French and German. There is a British element, and guess which bit the Brits have built? The biplane wings, of course. Yes, so that's it. The Airbus Racer biplane.
Is that based on? They flew a technology demonstrator a couple of years ago, didn't they? I think that looked a bit like that.
Yes, it was. Yeah, that was called the X3, and
Yeah.
you see it's got 2 engines out on those wings, as well as the main main rotors at the top. And the idea is to fly faster. And the whole thing has been built. It's extraordinary. If you look at the story on the Flyer website, where there's a lot of detail about how they've made it, it really is an extraordinary thing. And the technology going into it is much more than just weird design and extra engines and things. It's a really extraordinary piece of equipment. Not quite sure how it fits into the Clean Sky program, but never mind.
Looks cool.
It looks cool.
I've got 2 problems with it. One, we shouldn't have done the biplane wings. Clearly, we should have been responsible for manufacturing the whiz wheel holder inside. And the other thing is the speeds. You only ever quote kilometers an hour if you haven't got very impressive speeds. Otherwise, it's in knots. It's aviation. 400 kilometers an hour means.
I do have the figures in knots. I worked them out, using my whiz wheel. And,
and it's 5,000.
Yeah.
400 kilometers an hour is 216 knots. And if you look at the cruise speed, the maximum cruise speed of a typical helicopter, it's around 140 knots. So that's a substantial, third faster jump.
It's slower than my fancy hangar helicopter last night, which managed 250 knots.
Well, they're competing technologies, aren't they? Yeah,
They are.
Absolutely. What's next?
Anyway, talking of
Right. We've seen a brilliant offer online this morning to help pilots return to flight. If you're lucky enough to be around or part of the Enstone airfield-based Take Flight Aviation, they're offering a brilliant, fantastic 3 for free for safety deal for club members. It's 3 takeoffs and landings for free with an instructor to get current again. And just what a brilliant offer. Well done, Take Flight. What a brilliant kind of contribution to getting members flying again, getting people safe. And if in the comments you know of any other clubs that are doing awesome things like this, let us know and let's share this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's very good news. Now, if you're fed up of manually checking your tyre pressures, Behringer have released video of their new Sensair system, which is a pressure and temperature sensor, but it actually straps to your wheel rim and they connect to your smartphone and they turn on when you're within 10 feet, which, having thought about it, in some aircraft, you'll be sat flying it and you'll be less than 10 feet from the wheels, so they could be on all the time. But it's available now for 4, 5 and 6 inch wheels.
Nice.
And also we've got more tech news. If you remember the old dial-up versus broadband thing back in the whenever it was 90s, today's tech, it's all about USB-C, which offers more power and quicker data exchange. And Garmin have updated their GSB 15 twin port charger to USB-C, so you now can get 27 watts of power out of it. And you can also even transfer databases to your GI275.
Nice.
Download all your engine information data, and the price for that is just $400.
Just
wow. Any idea how much the strap-on costs?
I'll let you email them and ask that, Ian.
Bob Prince has put in the comments, don't put down UK manufacturing. I think that might have been a reference to me and the whiz wheel holder. I wasn't putting down UK manufacturing, just having a laugh. I'm sure we can build the best biplane wings for the Airbus Racer as anyone. So a little bit of sad news. Last week, during the live stream last week, we said that tomorrow we'd have Sophie O'Sullivan from the CA as our guest on here, and that was all arranged. The interview was all planned and everything else. However, unfortunately, I got a letter from the CA, not a letter. Who gets letters anymore? I got an email from the CA saying, unfortunately, due to the Princeford, due to the royal whatever, I've lost my words. Basically, they can't do it because the country's in mourning. So no interview with the CEA. That will now be taking place next week. So they're still going to do the interview. We just can't record it and stream it this week. So apologies for that, but tune into the live stream next week, and hopefully that will be done and dusted, and you'll see it there. Well, I think that's about it for the news, isn't it?
Okay, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the week, it's the 75th anniversary year of the Light Aircraft Association. The LAA oversee aircraft home building in the UK, as well as a fleet of older factory-built aircraft that no longer have factory support. And by being a member and taking advantage of this, you'll find some of the best ways to fly for fun on a budget. I spoke to their CEO, Steve Slater, to find out more about what they offer. Hello, Steve, and welcome to Fly Alive.
Well, thank you. It's a very innovative way of doing a show. I'm hoping we're still going to get some face-to-face meetings later on in the year, but this is a great initiative, so well done on it.
Great, thanks very much. So you're CEO of the Light Aircraft Association. Can you tell us what LAA does?
Where do I start? The LAA, and you can see from the poster behind me, the LAA is celebrating 75 years as an organization. And it started off to really enable home builders to build and then certify their aircraft and fly them. And we've grown over the years to having 7,700 members. We're Britain's largest powered sport flying association. And we don't just take in home builders these days. We've got an awful lot of aircraft which used to have certificates of airworthiness, used to have factory support. That's no longer available because the factories have long demised. And we provide the airworthiness support to allow those aircraft to fly as well. So we oversee permits to fly on behalf of the CAA for around about 2,600 active aircraft. And there are about another 1,600 restoration projects or aircraft that are in home build at the moment, which will be taken to the air sometime soon.
And what's you talk about home building? It's obviously a big thing of LAA. What's the range of aircraft that members can choose to build?
Well, the aircraft are as varied as the members, really. And we have everything from microlight aircraft and kit-built microlights through to plans-built classic aircraft where people will literally buy consignments of timber and make their own metal fittings and work to aircraft drawings, which will actually give them the opportunity to then build and fly their own aircraft. Of course, the big revolution in recent years has been kit-built aircraft and the Vans RV range of aircraft and other similar aluminium aircraft, which now with the computer and precision manufacture of the parts literally are ever quicker to build. And we also have, of course, composite aircraft and the traditional wooden fabric. So it covers all sorts. And of course, gyroplanes too. We've now got over 150 gyroplanes, both factory built and amateur built on the LAA permit system.
And if members, so a member wants to build an aeroplane, they use the inspector network. How does the inspector network work?
Yes, we have nearly 400 inspectors, which are approved inspectors. They have regular exams and updates to keep them abreast of the changes of technology. They're largely experienced aircraft engineers or have been home builders themselves or aircraft restorers. And they can provide both advice as well as physically inspecting the aircraft. And we have a fixed regime, which actually starts with an inspection of the workshop to make sure it's going to be suitable for you to build your aircraft in. We have had people build aeroplanes in first floor flats, but we've got to always be a bit realistic about the fact that the neighbors don't like knocking the wall down to get the aircraft out at the end of it. We have now, as I say, about 400 inspectors, and they also look after inspection, at very least on an annual basis, of any aircraft which has a permit to fly, to allow that permit to fly to be renewed. And also any maintenance activities can be discussed with the inspector. They can give advice and then give the vital, what we call a second signature, to make sure that the aircraft is properly inspected before it flies again.
And if members are thinking of building, I think the LAA runs educational courses.
Oh, yes. Well, both for builders and for people who just want to maintain or restore their aircraft. When we come out of the COVID lockdown, we'll be starting activities again in a classroom, purpose-made classroom and workshop at our LAA headquarters at Toweston in Northamptonshire. We do metalwork courses, teaching the riveting techniques and all the other techniques in order to put together a kit-built aircraft. We also do woodworking courses at a location near Swindon. where the specialist woodworking tools and, in fact, special timber stocks are stored. We have engine courses, so people want to know how to install, for example, the latest Rotax engines with electronic fuel injection systems. And we also do courses actually on electronics and electrics themselves, ranging from how to solder things together to actually designing your own electrical system.
So a member finishes their aeroplane. Can they? What happens if they want to? When it comes to test flying, do they have to test fly it themselves, or can they use someone from the LAA to test fly it?
A lot of our members, when they've finished an aircraft, naturally want to fly it themselves as soon as possible. We do quite often recommend, though, that having a professionally trained test pilot available to initiate the test flying and do maybe the first flight while the owner watches from the ground, and then to brief the owner to actually carry out a flight test program. And a lot of our approved test pilots have either been on our own LAA test pilot courses or have actually been trained in the military at the Empire Test Pilot School or at Pax River in the United States. And we're very lucky in that we have a cadre of very, very highly qualified pilots who are both interested and keen to offer their advice. So a first flight isn't as daunting as many people might think. It should be a verification of what you already know rather than a step into the unknown. And many members actually do satisfy us that they're qualified to carry out a first flight. And that has to be one of the greatest things in the world, an aircraft that you've either built from scratch or rebuilt as a restoration project, to be at the controls of the aircraft that you have handmade and put together in your own workshop. That is quite some feeling.
That is, yeah. And I think the LAA operates a coaching scheme, doesn't it? So that if members feel that they need to build on their flying skills, they can access coaches around the UK? Absolutely.
The pilot coaching scheme that we have is, again, voluntary. We have over 40 pilots who are qualified as class rating instructors. In other words, that they're qualified to train already extant PPLs. They're not ab initio instructors necessarily. And they have the skills which have been honed around LAA permit type aircraft, whether it be a classic tail dragger, a relatively high performance aircraft like a Vans RV-8, or even a specific aerobatic type. And they can offer very specific advice. We also have some more fun activities as well. As we come out of lockdown, we'll be starting to look at doing strip flying courses, for example, teaching you how to operate not from a big airport, but from a private flying site or a smaller farm strip, and the right protocols to operate from those. And that's very important because a lot of owners want to reduce their flying costs by potentially moving away from big airports and into smaller flying sites. And there is a specific skill set required to be developed to do that. In addition to that, of course, we recognize now that many of the LAA membership don't have the space and the time to build their own aircraft, but they will buy a previous builder's project. And those people really do need a little bit of assistance and support sometimes on how to maintain the aircraft, how to ensure it's in tip-top condition all the way through, and again on the flying characteristics, which might be slightly different from the usual Flying Club Piper Cherokee. And that is another thing that can be done through the coaching system and, of course, through our engineering training courses as well.
Fantastic. So LAA really is a very affordable way, probably the UK's most affordable way to fly after you've got your PPL.
Yes, and it's quite interesting. People sometimes think that other forms of flying, and there's nothing to knock them, I've got to say, other forms of flying, including gliding, including flex-wing microlight aircraft, and even paragliders. Some of these now are running into £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 machines. And in fact, in some of the more sophisticated microlights, you're probably paying over £50,000 for one. A lot of the aircraft in the LAA fleet, two-seat aircraft, you can get one probably with a bit of TLC required for about £10,000. And certainly £15,000 will buy you something where you could go touring, once COVID again stops, touring the continent with impunity. If you wanted a smaller single-seat amateur built aircraft, you could probably be looking as little as £5,000 for a really good airworthy proposition. So it is very much affordable flying for fun, and that's been our motto now for 75 years.
Well, thanks for joining us, Steve. And I know that we'll have a member offer coming up for LAA. But just like to take the opportunity to say thanks for joining us. And if members want to find out more, obviously go and check out the LAA stand on the Fly Alive site.
Well, Ed, you know loads about LAA aircraft, don't you? Well, you know loads about all aircraft, really.
The reason I'm flying now is because back in 1992, I think it was, I answered a little ad in the back of Aeroplane Monthly saying, join the Popular Flying Association. And that got me to a strip where I met a whole bunch of people. And that was the whole lead into me flying and me learning to fly and me building airplanes. So the LAA really has kind of given me direction through all my flying. So yeah, they really are as an association. It's like people forget, or sometimes people don't realise just how much the LAA can offer people, pilots, in terms of flying opportunities. Certainly flying for lower cost, flying quite exciting types. And if you're feeling a little bit practical, obviously the opportunity to build your own aeroplane. So.
Talking of the flying for low cost, Steve was talking about some sort of kind of single seaters that you could get for something like £5,000 or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen VP1s for that much money on A4s and the like.
I think not the trouble, but the things like the Peyton Pole and stuff like that, they all look like they're built for someone who was perhaps a jockey in a former life or something, rather than someone like me. Is there anything, what have we got at the kind of at the low cost, high fun end?
Low cost, high fun. Well, probably certainly some of the 2-seat Jodels, low cost and high fun, quite capable. The 120s, things like that. Probably a Corby Starlet would be a nice single seater.
What about that little Rans? The little Rans that you can convert to a single seater that some people are doing.
The Rans S9.
Yeah,
that's quite good fun. Rans S10 is 2 seats. But makes a very good single seater. That's might not be aerobatic on LAA, but yeah, good machine. But there's all sorts of aeroplanes that, and we'll touch on this in Fancy Hangar a bit later. You'll find there's quite a lot of great value aeroplanes available between kind of 10 and 25, 30,000 pounds if you look in the classifieds. So lots of great value flying fun to be had with LAA.
Excellent. Well, and tonight's a bit of a theme on kind of value for money, lower cost flying, isn't it? About extracting the maximum fun for the minimum amount of money, which I think, it's probably tough to beat gliding for that, I would have thought. Well, depending, maybe not competition gliding, where you can spend fearsome amounts of money on extremely hot gliders, sailplanes, but kind of, your basic club stuff is pretty good.
But there are all LAA, BMAA with microlighting, gliding. They all have quite cost-effective ways of getting in and doing quite a bit of flying for not very much money. People forget that actually flying, you don't need a king's ransom to have fun. So,
and talking about king's ransoms, you don't need a king's ransom to go gliding, as Ian just said. The British Gliding Association is the organisation that looks after gliding, much as the LAA does for permit aircraft. And earlier today, I spoke to Pete Stratton about all the opportunities that you can have with gliding. Hello, welcome to Fly Live, and we're talking to the British Gliding Association and the CEO, Pete Stratton. So hi, Pete, how are you?
Hi, Dave, and hi to all the Flyer team and everybody that's with you. Yeah, great, thanks, good to see you.
So tell us a bit about how gliding is organised in the UK. How do you get involved?
Yeah, so, how you get involved is go to gliding.co.uk, and that will start your journey of discovering gliding through a Find a Club portal. But anyway, once you've found a club, you don't normally need to book in, but I think with COVID going on, booking in might be the thing. And of course, the website that you click onto will, of course, guide you accordingly. But anyway, you just turn up, and hopefully your starting adventure is by having an introductory flight. And you'll fly in one of our 2-seat dual-controlled sailplanes with a qualified pilot or instructor. And hopefully you'll have such a good time, you'll want to do more of it. Now, if you come along as an aeroplane pilot for the first time with flying experience, of course, we'll put you straight in with an instructor because, you'd want to get on with having a go.
I had a go at gliding a few years ago, and I found the hardest part was actually the takeoff, because there's either the winch
What sort of method are you using? Do you remember?
I tried both, actually. Tried both winch and also the aero tow. And the winch was like being sent up in a rocket, and the aero tow was pretty nerve-wracking for the first minute when you're close to the ground.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't the place to go into the detail of an aero tow, but it's not quite like formation flying, because actually a rope between you and the aircraft, which presents all sorts of issues you've got to deal with.
So, but you use the two methods of getting people into the air. As a beginner, would you use just either one, or would you?
Yeah. So the way it works is some gliding clubs are only winch, some are only aerotow launch, and some and others, have both. Most people find for training, because the best way of training to become a pilot in any type of aircraft is to do lots of takeoffs and landings and circuits, approaches and landings, I should say. So the winch is a great way of doing it because it's a very cheap way of getting airborne. But it's up to the individual to choose. If they go to a gliding club that's got aerotow, they can choose to be trained on aerotow. And then ultimately, you can add a different launch type if you choose to, as you progress through your training.
I understand that there's all these different things you have to take into account when gliding, whether you're soaring on air currents, and sometimes that's from thermals, sometimes it's from waves caused by the wind hitting mountains. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Well, so, the great thing about gliding is we are using the same rising currents of air that birds use to soar. So it's fantastic. We're up there with nature. It sounds a bit hackneyed, but it's true. It's great. It's one of the fantastic things about it, and makes it particularly different from flying aeroplanes. And so most of the time in most of the UK, we're using thermals, kind of rising air. Earlier this week, we had some fantastic soaring conditions. See the cumulus clouds up at 5,000 feet. In fact, some of the guys were getting up to 7,000 feet in East Anglia. Really fantastic conditions because of that polar air. In the areas where there's hills, Wales, north of England, Scotland, etc., and in Northern Ireland, you get wave lift, where the air sort of flows over the hill and bounces back up. And you can use that rising air to climb to fantastic altitude. So I think the UK record is something like 30,000 feet. That's pretty unusual. But most of us have, been hovering around up at 20,000 feet or so in Scotland at some point, which is great. But most of the time we're operating thermals. Most of the time we're operating in the sort of, bottom 5,000 foot of the sky. The other way of staying airborne, which is great fun, is where the air is flowing up the side of a hill or a ridge or a mountain. It's called ridge flying. And you can fly along in your glider, as long as the air is flowing up the hill. You can fly cross country if you can join the hills together. And there's all sorts of different things you can do. So, yeah, fantastic fun. Really is good fun.
How much flying do you have to do with an instructor before you can go solo?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we're currently operating under BJ rules. So gliding is currently self-regulated still. So we've got the retained EU regulations coming down the tube at us, and we have to comply with those by the 8th of December. But for now, we're operating under BGA training rules. And to qualify for solo, you've got to have done at least 20 training launches. Sounds like a lot, but those flights could be really short for a winch launch. If you're converting across as an aeroplane pilot, an experienced aeroplane pilot, you don't have to do those 20 launches. But bear in mind that's to solo. And then beyond solo, there's training in navigation, in off-field landings, things like that actually result in you becoming then a qualified pilot. So solo is just one step in the journey.
I guess you must learn pretty early how to land somewhere that isn't an airfield, because that happens to people in gliders.
The way actually, I fly a lot across country. It's what I do. It's a hobby. So I think in the last 10 years, I've only landed out of the field once, because most of us are pretty good at reading the sky and staying airborne. If we land out, we prefer to land at another airfield these days. But absolutely, it's a risk once you deliberately fly away from the airfield. And so part of the pilot training is to do field landing training. We use Tory motor gliders for that, where we actually teach people how to select and fly into a field down to about 500 feet above the ground, obviously. And it's just a standard part of pilot training. And a lot of gliding clubs, provide refresher training for people just to keep those skills up. It is really important. You're quite right.
Yes, I understand also that there's a lot of competitions in gliding. You seem to fly triangular routes to...
Yeah, so a standard thing, for me and lots of my colleagues that were experienced pilots, we would go to the airfield, you know, at, I don't know, 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, having looked at the weather the night before, because forecasting is really good these days, particularly within 24 hours of the day. We would assemble our gliders. They're all designed to be rigged in 5 or 10 minutes with self-connected controls and things. Park them up, get together for a bit of a briefing, airspace, NOTAMs, all that sort of stuff, you know, where we're going to go. Plan something using the available software that we have, and then probably fly typically, like on Wednesday, when I happen to be lucky enough to go flying, flew a 300-kilometre task. So, you know, I flew across to Husbands Bosworth and across to Granston Lodge, up to Saltby in Lincolnshire and back down. I was flying from Dunstable. That's not untypical. On that particular day, a couple of gliders flew more than 600-kilometre tasks. And we're using, you know, GPS moving maps. We have all our flights are logged using secure GPS loggers, and then we can download them at the end of the flight, have a look at them, and then upload them to an rolling online competition. So that's running all the time. If we decide we can take, you know, a week off work, then we can enter a gliding competition. And they're organised throughout the year, where I go up to maximum of 50 really sensibly, but more realistically 30 or 40 glider pilots turn up, and they fly declared tasks every day for a week. And then the guy who's got, or the guy or girl that's got around the fastest overall over the whole period and amassed the most points, and you can score a maximum of 1,000 points a day, wins the competition. But you're not going to get rich from it. It's not like Formula One. You know, a day prize might be a bottle of wine at the end of the week. If you're fortunate, you might win a new, you know, GPS unit or something like that. But hey, look, we do it for the sport, for the fun, and for the kudos of beating our mates.
There's one question I have to ask, and that is about safety. Just what is gliding's record in safety?
Yeah, so it used to have a bit of a checkered history going back some way. You know, I'm not going to beat around the bush, but actually, you know, we've focused on this area in the last, you know, 10, 15 years or maybe longer. We use a safety management system that's approved by the CAA that underpins a couple of our approvals, actually. We're a declared training organisation. It's plugged into that. We're a CAMO and MO that, you know, the same SMS is plugged into that, actually. And, yeah, I mean, it's a risk sport. The way we view it is we absolutely 100% make sure that our sport doesn't impact third parties at all. That is completely, you know, absolutely correct. People who are learning to fly, you know, have an extra layer of protection around them. But when you're an active participant and you understand the risks, then, you know, there's a lot more down to the pilot to make decisions about what they're going to do, if that makes sense. So I'm not saying it's 100% safe, but it's reasonably safe. We know that certainly CA, DFT and all the others, along with all the rest of GA, they're content with the level of safety in general aviation.
You mentioned some changes coming down the way. Could you tell us a bit more about those?
Yeah, sure. So, of course, EASA, as it used to be, European Aviation Safety Agency, because we're not part of that now, but they picked up gliding as something it needed to regulate some years ago. Being typical Brits, we've been, you know, we're very European in our outlook, and we're very connected to the European gliding community. But we just wanted to make sure these things were proportionate. So we've been working with our European gliding colleagues just to make sure that happened. And under EASA, that was definitely happening. Those regulations have been picked up as retained regulations by the UK, and so they're kind of still rolling out in gliding. We are currently subject to the operations rules, sailplane air operations rules as they are, separate from the stuff the airplane people deal with. And we're getting the sailplane flight crew licensing rules need to be implemented in the UK from the 8th of December this year. And along with that, of course, comes the declared training organisation rules. So we're getting ourselves geared up for that. We're doing the license conversions for CAA. So basically we do all the work and then make a recommendation to the CAA who issue the piece of paper. And we're also helping our clubs set up the DTO bit. It's, you know, it's not a huge issue. And it was going to be a huge issue had we not had the pilot medical declaration come through, which is happening. As you know, the law change in January, we've been pushing very hard for that for several years, actually. It's great to see that come through. And, you know, the CA just needs to get its act together on the sub 2,000 kg bit. But let's not bore people with that.
So this all sounds very exciting, Pete. So when are you going flying again?
I think I'm duty instructor at my gliding club on the 17th, which for that club will be the first time the two-seater flying can go on because they only fly on weekends at this time of year. So yeah, I'm just kind of doing lots. I normally head off to the Alps in the spring. Obviously, that's not going to happen, just like it didn't happen last year. And I've made noises about going at the back end of the summer. Let's see what happens then.
Thanks very much, Pete. That was really good. Good to understand a bit more about gliding, and we hope you have a great show. Thanks for talking.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much. Good to chat.
What a great guy Pete Stratton is. And,
yeah.
Very active in looking after airspace as well. But clearly, the gliding community felt a bit threatened by the Farnborough airspace. You know, their jewel in the crown, if you like, is Lasham Airfield, and that was really affected by that Lasham airspace. So the BGA are really on looking after that side of things and making people aware.
Doing good work.
Yeah.
I've just got a little tip for everyone. If you haven't done this already, it doesn't mean you have to go and be a glider pilot, or but why not anyway? But get yourself along to a glider club that uses a winch launch, and just take a trial flight on a winch launch. It's got to be one of the most exhilarating ways of getting into the air. Like the first time you do it, it's like, whoa, dude! It really is. And they're not very. It's not very expensive to go get a winch launch or two, and it's well worth. It's a great way to spend an afternoon or a morning, I would suggest. So if you want to add to your aeronautical experience, go grab a winch launch.
Yeah, you've sold it to me.
Whoa, dude! When I'm up in a winch launch.
Anyway. Right, so on yesterday's show, we heard from Avionics UK representative Mike Tetlow about their AV30 and Tailbeacon X products. Tonight, we've got a video from Mike showing some of the ways you can configure and use the AV30 in your cockpit. Hi, and welcome to Mike Tetlow. Mike is the UK rep for Avionics. Mike, you made a video for us about AV30.
Yes, I've used our demo unit that we normally take to a show to demonstrate what it is that the AV30 can do for you, how nice the display is. And then I finish by going to an online simulator to show you how it can provide navigational input from an existing nav system that you may have in your aircraft.
So having had a quick look at it, I'll now take you more slowly through actually setting up your AV30. First thing to do is to decide how you want it to look. So if you press the menu button twice on the left hand side, then you get the setup menu, and you rotate the multifunction button in the middle, and then you can decide on things like the UI style. It can be legacy, press it again, can be EFIS, or indeed it can be vintage, and you'll see that you get arrows left and right if there are more functions to choose from, or just on one side if you need to go back or forward through the menu. So there's the vintage style. Personally, I like the one called legacy. Press again twice, and we can rotate on to the font that the display is going to show you. I like Arial. There is an output from the AV30 to the audio system of your aircraft, so to give you audio warnings, and you can choose the volume that that's going to be, and then you can decide which functions are going to give you an audio warning. So if you want it to tell you when your AOA is too high, then you enable or disable it. You tell the system what is the upper and the lower limit of AOA for your aircraft. Equally for G, you can enable an over G situation with an audio warning, and again it wants to know what is the upper limit and what's the lower limit for your aircraft, +6 to -3 for mine. You can, if you have an aircraft that's limited in roll, then that can be enabled for an audio warning. It's not an issue on mine, so it's currently disabled. And then you have roll limits if they apply to you. Okay, so let's just go and look at the fields. We had a brief look at this earlier. What are the options for the fields? Well, any of them can be changed to anything. So I'm going to use the one in the top left corner here. It's currently the G limit. Let's go right to the very beginning. So in the menu, the first thing it could be is the heading, or it can be the bus voltage, or it can be the safety altitude. It can be your vertical speed, your G, the next waypoint, the distance to the next waypoint, your ground speed, your track, your cross-track error, and the distance along track that you've travelled. Also could be the bearing to the next waypoint. So there's a wealth of things that every single one, I'm going to press that now, so I've now set that particular field to bearing to the next waypoint. And if I just press it again, the menu goes away. So there's just a raft of information that you can get up here. Once we've gone away from the menus, the push button now has another couple of functions. Press it once, that's where I get to change my barometer. So let's get it to read something like, let's say we're up at 150 feet, and the QNH is 1006. There you go. I set it, I press it. That's the QNH changed. You get told by air traffic to set a new QNH. You press it. Let's say they say it's now 1004. You press it. It's done. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Something you don't need to do quite so frequently, as I showed you before. Press it twice, and you get to adjust the DG heading. In case there's any drift on the flight, then you can change it in flight, make it align with other sources of magnetic heading. Let's say it's now 323. Press the button, that's done. And that is essentially it, and it's probably the most I can show you on this particular demo, because if I press and hold the button without a GPS navigator connected to it, which I don't have here, then I won't be able to show you the HSI. What I can show you quickly, though, is that there's the compass display. I have a heading bug. Press the button, let's say I want to follow a heading of 330. Press the button. You can see the purple bug is up at the top. It's saying no data because there isn't a GPS connected at the moment, but in similar fashion to the ADI, you can select the fields on this screen and what they are going to display. What I'm going to do now is move over to a computer simulator, which will be able to show you what the HSI looks like, and then we've had a pretty good tour of the AV30. So I've now moved over to a simulated display of the AV30, just to show you those functions which don't work on my desktop demo unit because they don't have the external devices to drive them. So we would start off with a straightforward compass display. The heading bug is there. You still have some fields that you configure. This is the one that I really like, and I use an awful lot in my own aeroplane. It's connected to my GPS navigator, and you have an excellent HSI. It's a lot easier to use. It's right in front of you. It's very bright, and you can easily navigate around, know how far on or off track you are, just with a single glance, really, and you can do all the other important things in the aeroplane at the same time. So here you can see there's a heading bug. Let's say I'm clearly right of track here, and so I've decided that to get onto this track line of mine that is about 025, I need to head to the north. I've put a heading bug on it, and we're driving towards that heading bug. The waypoint is Kilo Alpha Bravo Quebec. You can give it any name you like. It's currently 14 miles away. We're counting down as we come towards it. We're on a track of north. We have 155 knot ground speed. It bears from me, and you can see the green bearing bug swinging around 016 at this moment, and the cross-track error is about half a mile at this time. So there we are, driving towards the right track, and once we get onto it, the deviation bar will will align with the arrow. It'll be a single solid arrow. We'll know we're on track, and we just turn to put it in the 12 o'clock position, and there we will be back on track again. It's as simple as that. When you get to your next waypoint, the waypoint name changes, the new distance comes up, and the arrow swings around to give you something else to follow. Again, turn it to the 12 o'clock and keep on going, and you will get there. It's fantastic, and the information is derived from your existing GPS navigator, but the way it's presented to you is just so much neater and tidier. I love it. There's another form of display of that same information. There's your waypoint coming towards you. We're nearly there, and there's about 3 or 4 miles left to run. So just another display of the same information. You can pick and choose what you do with it. But it's fantastic. Lastly, if I flick back to the ADI function, you would do this by holding the button in the middle of the display. You can see here that not only is it telling me pitch and roll, but it's also telling me what I'm squawking and what the mode of the transponder is, if it's connected to our Tail Beacon X transponder, which we'll be bringing to market in the UK quite soon. There is another transponder change page, which is quite easy to use. The numbers are much bigger than you see here. Easy to change, and you can use the AV30 as a head unit to change the squawk and control the transponder of your Tail Beacon X. That's it, everybody. I'm happy to take any questions from the floor or indeed from Flyer.
That's great, really informative. Thanks for doing that, Mike.
My pleasure.
Wow, impressive piece of kit. Ed, weren't you interested in one of those a little while ago?
Yeah, I'm hoping to get my hands on one in May time. I'm planning on putting one in the RV3 as a bit of a panel upgrade. So yeah, but it is very, very capable. The other reason I want to use it in the RV3 is that aeroplane doesn't have a transponder, and I'm really interested in Tail Beacon X because that's a brilliant way to add a transponder to that aeroplane.
It's a good combo, and I might just follow you on that one day. One day.
Yeah.
You could probably just nick his Tail Beacon X, couldn't you? Yeah, no, I have to say, we are super spoiled at the moment by the amount of new kit that comes out and the amount of stuff that's available to us, and it's getting more. I mean, it's pretty damn reliable. The price points are coming down, and that line between kind of home-built, non-certified avionics and certified avionics is also getting a little bit blurred with some of the stuff that Garmin are doing. And talking of which, I had a chance to speak to Trevor Pegram, who's the head of sales and marketing for Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Garmin earlier. Hello, Trevor. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Hey, Ian. Great to be with you guys. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolute pleasure. Earlier in the week, I was speaking to Ben Smith over in Southampton about the Garmin products, and clearly, I mean, Garmin's always been a company that just continually develops and innovates and releases new products. I wonder if you could give us a little bit more detail on some of the stuff that's been happening around the autopilot, the GFC and the GFC 500 and 600.
Yeah, it's a great question, Ian. So yeah, we've been really blessed over the last couple of years to have a rapid release cycle, not just with new products, but also with new software updates and adding new capability to those existing products. I don't know the exact number, what it is. I think Ben was telling me around 20 different new products or major releases in the last 18 months. So yeah, we've been very busy back in the development houses at Garmin, bringing out new capabilities and introducing new products. But I think one of the things we're really proud of actually is the GFC 500 and GFC 600 autopilots. There's a couple of reasons why we're particularly proud of these products. And I think one of the main reasons is the extreme level of safety that it adds to general aviation aircraft. I think we also have to think a little bit about the history of autopilots as well. I've been at Garmin for nearly 16 years now, so a little bit of a tenure in the aviation industry. Certainly not as long as yourself, of course.
I'm a lot older than you.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. But for the longest time at Garmin, probably for the first 13 or 14 years at Garmin, the only autopilot we had was with an integrated flight deck. And really, when you looked at the market for autopilots, they were kind of expensive, and honestly, kind of old from a technology perspective. I'm not going to call out any particular names, but the reality was an autopilot used to run in at 30K plus for an installation that maybe it was a digital autopilot, but wouldn't necessarily be attitude based. It would have been a rate based autopilot, so it didn't have the full capability and flight profile and capability that we see in the modern autopilots. But yet that was a 30 grand product. So what essentially happened, Ian, that you really priced yourself out of the market, and the lower end of general aviation, the core market of general aviation, just couldn't get into an autopilot. And I think, to be fair, a lot of the cost wasn't necessarily coming from the cost intrinsically in the product. It was really coming from the certification overhead and actually the liability of the autopilots. I mean, in the end, an autopilot really has the ability to do great things, but also, bad things. You're in your what we call a catastrophic failure condition, so it really can have the flight envelope of the aeroplane. So it's kind of risky, and there's a lot of certification burden that sits over the top of that. And so, Garmin looked at the market, and we were like, we think we can innovate here. We think we can bring some of the lessons learned from our integrated autopilot, the GFC 700, and we can take this down into the general aviation market. And the goal was set by management, by senior leadership at Garmin. We want to get an autopilot for under $10,000. Now, that's the price of the equipment, the certification, for under $10,000. Of course, there's a cost, that has for the installation and things like that. But that was the goal, and we felt that if we could get a price point under 10K, that we would really see a big uptake in the market for the core general aviation customers. Your 172s, your 182s, your PA28s, those type of market where, as you said, a very expensive autopilot solution was the only thing on the market at the time. So
I think, yeah. I mean, if you look at the fleet of general aviation aircraft, there's clearly there's a huge worldwide fleet, but an awful lot of those aircraft are they're not the price of brand new aircraft. So you might have an aircraft worth 50, 60, 70,000 pounds.
Absolutely.
So to install, spending half of the value of the aircraft on effectively an old technology autopilot is not that appealing.
Absolutely. It just doesn't make sense, right? If you've got to spend 30 or 40 grand on an autopilot for an aircraft that's worth 60 or 70,000, maybe less, then the business case doesn't make sense, and it's a tough sell. But here's the reality. An autopilot, that saves lives. It really, really does. And in terms of a safety thing, this is what I would say to anybody that's looking for an avionics upgrade. The thing that they should invest first is a new autopilot system, because it really, really makes a difference.
I would have disagreed with you before I installed an autopilot that works. And I have to say, when Garmin announced the GFC 500, I was super, super happy, because I didn't really relish paying huge amounts of money for an old technology autopilot.
Yeah, so great point. And as I mentioned before about the goal for Garmin to get an autopilot under $10,000, there was kind of another goal that was also about taking the technology that we have within the GFC 700 and scaling it down into a lower cost solution. And we didn't just want to bring a basic wings leveler for $10,000. We didn't just want to bring an autopilot that could, do the pitch and the roll. We wanted to take the full spectrum of technology that we had and bring that down into the lower cost autopilot. So yeah, ESP, that's one of the great new features that we added with the GFC 500. And it's a little bit difficult to explain, but I'll try and kind of model this, if you will, for a second. So what ESP does is it works when the autopilot's off. And the goal with ESP is to prevent you from hand flying the aeroplane into a situation that could be dangerous for the aircraft. So it has what we call underspeed protection, right? So if you're getting slow based on the aircraft flight profile, what the ESP thing will gently nudge the aircraft forward to maintain your airspeed, really to prevent you from stalling, essentially. It also has overspeed protection. So if you're on the descent and you're descending at speed and you're approaching the V&E of the aircraft, again, we'll gently nudge the control forces up just to wash off some of that speed. Also works in the roll angle. So if you're exceeding the bank angle of the aeroplane there, you'll have this gentle control force feeling in the yoke or in the stick, just slowly nudging you back into that correct envelope. And the goal is just to put that layer of protection around the aeroplane to prevent you hand flying the aircraft into an unusual condition. And that's a really huge safety benefit. The use case, of course, is your base to final turn when you're low and slow. It comes on, ESP activates, of course, before the stall warning there. And that's just to give you that indication that, you know, you're getting into the position that could be dangerous. And, you know, same with that bank angle, IMC conditions, you know, you're a little bit disorientated, then ESP is really going to help you in those type of scenarios. Some other things we've done, the level button, again, just if you're, again, that IMC conditions, inadvertent IMC, we know is a really big, dangerous situation. Just reach out, hit that blue level button, pitch, roll, neutral, and allow you to focus on cleaning up the aircraft there.
Yeah, I call that the buy you some time button. I think
Yeah, absolutely.
Never had to use it other than trying to kind of test it. But it's great to think, hit that. Okay, I can unload and figure out what's going on here.
Absolutely. And you know, as I said, that was the goal. It wasn't just to create an autopilot, it was to create an autopilot that really adds extra safety. And you know, with you know, being able to couple the approaches, missed approaches, vertical speed settings, these things are fantastic, but we really wanted to add that extra safety as part of the autopilot system. And I really think we've achieved that with the GFC 500 and the GFC 600 autopilot as well.
Okay, given Garmin's inability to sit down and not develop things, well, I can't believe that you've already got to the end and go, well, that's it with autopilots, we've finished. You know, what else are you thinking of adding?
Yeah, there's a lot happening in the skunk works at Garmin, quite honestly. I kind of feel like we're at the beginning of what we're going to be doing with the autopilot and also with the Garmin ecosystem as well. You know, we talk about the autopilot, but the autopilot links with the Garmin indicators, it links with the Garmin navigators. You know, we've got engine indication systems now. So really starting to form this ecosystem around the aircraft with huge amounts of data that we can utilize and help create a safer flying condition. Smart rudder bias is what we released for the GFC 600. That's based as similar to the ESP technology. And what smart rudder bias does, so twin engine aircraft, engine out, so your workload shot absolute up to the max. And in an engine out situation, you essentially have to trim the aircraft and trim the rudder. And so what smart rudder bias does is that kind of this auto trim for you, right? So it automatically kicks that rudder in to straighten the aircraft and just giving you that little bit of extra time to deal with the engine failure condition. So that's already out there on the market. We've certified that for a couple of aeroplanes now. And then obviously you look really far out there and what we've done is with Autoland, of course. And that's now certified with the FAA and with the EASA, a number of different aircraft types. And emergency Autoland is you know, the pilot's incapacitated. You know, the passengers can reach out, they can push that button, and the aircraft will truly land itself. And so I think where you've got ESP here for the GFC 500 and you've got Autoland there's a lot of ground in the middle. There's a lot of ground in the middle where we can fill with life-saving technology and new innovations that are around the autopilot, that links with engine indication systems, that links with the navigators. So lots coming here.
So talking of Autoland, I mean, I think at the moment I'm probably, you know, I think it's on the M600 from Piper. I think it's on the TBM. I think
TBM. It's on the Cirrus.
jet.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Where do you think that'll? I mean, how much smaller aircraft do you think it will be realistic to have that on? And do you think there will ever be a kind of retrofit Autoland?
Well, that's a great question. You know, some of the challenges with the Autoland itself is the fact it has to be completely integrated into the aircraft. And so what you may not realize is that we're also braking the aeroplane when it lands. And so you have to have the brakes have to be integrated. We have to have the ability to control the engine. So that means you have to have some type of FADEC control or servo control on the actual engine system itself. So I don't think realistically a full Autoland would be likely retrofit in your 182 as an example. I just think that technologically we could do it, but I just think the cost to do it would be so high just from the additional parts that you need. But I do think there's a space in between kind of the full Autoland and, you know, with some of the capability that we have there. So, you know, there's lots happening at Garmin, and I'm not giving away the story here, but, you know, could we do things with, you know, an engine out as an example? You know, could we do something to do with glide maybe there? Could we do you know, we already have the ability to, within the nearest button, to find the airfield. So I think there's certainly things that we can definitely do there. You know, for the higher end aircraft, maybe there's some things we can do from the engine system as well. But yeah, I think realistically, a full Autoland retrofit for the lower end of GA is probably not realistic. But you never know, Ian.
Thank you, Trevor, for taking the time to speak to us, and thank you. On a personal note, thank you very much for the smarts in the GFC 500. I have to say, it's revolutionised the 182. I'm a huge fan of it.
Very good, and I hope at some point I can make it back to the UK this year so we can do some flying together. So
that would be great. That would be great. Just in case anyone's wondering about that, I did actually pay for my GFC 500.
He did. I can confer that as well. He did absolutely pay for the products completely.
So there you go. So thank you very much, and have a great evening.
Thanks, Ian. Take care.
Wow. Yeah, so like I said, lots of great technology, and like I said there, I do actually love the GFC 500 in my aircraft. I spent maybe 18 years of Cessna 182 ownership without an autopilot, or with like the really old Navomatic one that would just fly me around in a massive 10 nautical mile circle. That was about all it could cope with. So I kind of feel like I've paid my hand flying dues, if you like. So if I'm on a kind of long transit, I'm very happy to stick the autopilot on and say, take me there.
Definitely.
It's amazing how much capacity it gives you back as well at times. Great. Absolutely fine.
Yeah. Right then. So
yeah, absolutely. So time to move on.
Fancy hangar. So fancy hangar, and for tonight, obviously we've heard from the LAA on cost-effective flying, and we've got Paul Cadell later talking about more cost-effective stuff. So we figured we would pick our favourite cost-effective aircraft to go into our fancy hangar. And I know these sound like unconventional matches, fancy and cost-effectiveness, but just listen in, because I think you'll find some really good choices here. So who's first?
Me, and it's true, sometimes if I've just filled up the Cessna with avgas, the big tanks, plus I've got auxiliary tanks in the wing, I kind of fantasize about a Rotax sipping UL 91 at 15 litres an hour compared to the economy setting on the 182 of 42 litres an hour.
Yeah.
Which is, let's not speak about that. Let's move on. So I have chosen this, what I think is a really nice little aircraft, Sportstar Max. I flew it when it first came into the country. If you're wondering, we very bravely got a suction pad and suckered my camera on the wing there and went flying gingerly, but that worked out fine. Really, really lovely handling little aircraft. It's the kind of aircraft that I imagine you could stick in your hangar, not worry about, if you need to go flying, no problem. 15 litres now, why not? But you could tour very, very happily with it. So I'm a big fan of that. Plus, the advantage it's got over the Eurostar, which is kind of where its kind of DNA comes from, is that there's enough weight to be able to actually paint this one. So you haven't got to go around polishing the aluminium all the time. So there you go. So my fantasy cost-effective aircraft, Sportstar Max. And we're just going to gloss over the fact that you actually have to buy it in the first place, which is kind of, not quite
and quite a nice handling aeroplane as well, I think. You've always liked those, haven't you?
I did. I really, really liked it. Yeah. No, it was great.
Great. Who's up next? It's Johnny?
It's Dave.
It really is a very cost-effective aeroplane. I'm talking about the Luscombe 8. Yeah, which I know you think I'm this, but really honest, this is a very famous one in the UK. But the Luscombe 8, it's got 85 horsepower. It cruises at 95 miles an hour. That's a max cruise, if you're lucky, with a bit of a tailwind. The range is 340 nautical miles. The fuel burn is, if you're just nicely cruising along, 18 litres an hour, which for old tech is actually not bad. It doesn't quite match the 10 or 12 litres of a small Rotax, but I did actually have a look and I found some cost of ownership figures in the US, which don't quite apply to the UK, but it sort of gives an indication. And they reckon the cost of ownership to fly a Luscombe 8 is $53 an hour. That's £38 an hour. And that's everything. That's everything. Oh, yeah. £38 an hour, you can just keep flying. You just fly and fly and fly, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and again, a nice handling type.
nice handling type, and of course it's not going to depreciate anymore because it's depreciated just about as much as it can possibly do.
I think
From
Michael
now on, they're appreciating. Yes.
That Papercraft in the comments is not a bad call, is it? Actually,
it's a good choice as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And someone suggested the Jodel 117 as well. And if you don't fit in that, a Condor.
Condor for me then. And then there's the Europa being suggested as well, which I definitely probably. Well, the earlier versions are a little bit tight for me.
Yeah.
Johnny, what did you pick?
Yeah, I think I've won. I've picked the Champ because apparently it's just as good as a Cub. Again, I've not flown a Cub for any Cub owners listening, but better value for money. If you look at the prices that they go for, they're spacious inside. I mean, this exact aircraft actually lives next to us in the hangar. I don't live in a hangar, but I mean our aeroplane. They're rugged. You can solo them from the front seat, and they're good fun, decent looking machines. They're honest, real American grassroots.
They have comedy handling with adverse yaw though.
But that keeps you entertained.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, comedy handling. Comedy's a good thing, not a bad thing. You know, everyone needs to laugh. Yeah, I'll turn left. No, I'll go right then. Okay, whatever. It's fine.
Well, it's quite a good choice, Johnny. However, I think I may have trumped you all. Although maybe not Dave. I think Dave might have edged a winner tonight. But I still think so. My choice is the Piper Vagabond. So I'm lucky enough to fly this particular one, and it really is a fantastic, simple flying machine. It's on an LAA permit, so you can maintain it yourself, and you can buy a tidy one for around 20k. Insurance is reasonable, so expect around £600 to £700 for 2 or 3 of you if you're sharing. Small wingspan, so you don't need a big hangar space. Johnny, your Aronka Champ, I'm looking at that with its giant 31-foot wingspan. Doesn't fit in some hangars. No flaps, hand start Continental, great strip performance, take a friend, cruise at 100 miles an hour, and it's just an involving way. You need to be really quick on the rudders though, because it's short fuselage, and it'll get you if you're not keen with rudder use. But it's just a lot of fun flying at a cost that won't break the bank, and it's pretty.
Well, I still think I've won on that one.
Luscombe is a good choice.
Yeah.
Though
the Vagabond, having flown that, it is a good machine, and it can carry a lot more than I thought it could carry.
Yeah, absolutely. Robert Woodham said, "Well done, Ed." Yeah, it could be. And Michael Pear says, "Fun, cheap airplane, the Vagabond." It is. But this is, you'll notice, all of our types, and even the Sportstar Max, I think that might be available on LAA permit, possibly.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Clear of Cloud has just mentioned the one airplane that I want to own one day, which is the Mooney M18.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you and me both, Johnny. I think we're going to have to find one and rebuild one, aren't we?
Yeah.
Is it time to move on?
I think it probably is time to move on. Dave, it's over to you, I think.
Yes, well, we've had all sorts of flying on tonight. Microlights have got the gliding, and now we're going to go helicopter flying. One of our exhibitors is Elstree Helicopters, and I spoke to the boss, Captain Paul White, earlier today. Welcome to Fly Live. We're off to see Captain Paul White at Elstree Helicopters. So, Paul, good to see you. Welcome to Fly Live. Could you tell us a bit about Elstree Helicopters?
You can probably tell by the name, we operate out of Elstree Aerodrome, which is Hertfordshire, but basically North London. And we've been there for over 8 years now, but operating for best part of 23 years in total. And we're currently still today Elstree Aerodrome's only helicopter ATO, which is an approved training organisation. Yeah, so we train PPL, so we get them through that initial part of their training, and then we help mentor them towards their commercial training, if that's what they wish to do, or their instructor rating, and then they can go off and do that particular part of the license at their chosen location. Yeah, we've got a wide variety of helicopters to choose from. We've got the sort of the classic Robinson R22. We've also got Robinson 44s and 66. Capri G2, which is considered one of the sort of the more modern helicopters. It's actually been around since 2007, but is a very, very popular choice. We've got a couple of those. And we've got a Bell Jet Ranger, so that classic, iconic helicopter that most people think of when you mention helicopters. 2020 was just, oh dearie me, that was just a complete scrub. We were due to go back around the UK again, we sort of spent 5 days flying more or less around all the coastline of the UK. We had Ireland, we had France planned, we had all sorts planned, but that's the usual thing we do. So yeah, with whether you're learning to fly or pass and got your license, highly qualified, it doesn't matter. We run trips, whether they be a lunchtime trip somewhere special to go to lunch, or as I say, for several days. And we're looking forward to getting back over to France again, hopefully maybe this year.
What drew you to Elstree?
It was somewhere that I'd always known about being a good location. It was where a very well-known training provider for the UK used to exist, and it was their original first base. And alas, they went out of business, but it left a big sort of hole in that operating area. So when that opportunity arose, I thought, well, now's a good time to take it. And that's it. That was over 8 years ago. We moved into Elstree.
Are there any special things you have to remember when flying into Elstree? I mean, it's very close to London, obviously.
With what we call the London Terminal Moving Area above us at 2,500 feet, and can get a bit busy around there with General Aviation. But it's the difference between, I don't know, driving maybe on country roads and just driving into a town. You just need to be aware of your surroundings and the traffic around you. Yeah. Otherwise, it's as far as helicopters are concerned, it's a reasonably standard airfield to join. We go in low level at specific routes in and out, but it's not that difficult. It's pretty easy going there. We're also Flying Pig helicopters. We're uniquely sort of dual branded company, and it was to appeal to a much wider audience. What we found is, just sort of wind time back a little bit, back in the sort of the 90s and perhaps the early 2000s, flying was abundant, and the economy was doing incredibly well, and so flying was extremely good fun. And there was obviously the very serious side to it at the end of the day, of course. And then the double dip recession hit, and it wiped out so many flying schools, and the fun element seemed to disappear. So we're trying to just bring that fun back into it. And it was, Flying Big Helicopters was deliberately meant to be a little bit catchy, almost a little cheesy, bright colours, to sort of inject that back into it. So we're appealing with our Flying Big Helicopter side more to sort of trial lessons and flight experiences, and just to put the fun back into flying, quite literally.
Well, talking about experience, I was just reading a little bit about you. You've got an incredible number of hours as an instructor.
Well, I've got 1 or 2 hours, yeah, but that we always say that doesn't necessarily make you a good pilot or instructor. But I always try to make sure every day's a learning day and never pretend to know it all. That's for sure. I certainly don't.
Now that we are coming out of lockdown, and there appears to be a roadmap for opening up, how is this going to work for Elstree helicopters?
With a bit of luck, it'll be business as usual, back to normal again. Our calendar's full, which is fantastic. So, yes, but we're still sort of just taking a very careful, managed approach. We've been COVID secure for a very long time, so we're making sure everybody's very safe and careful, and we're doing various tests, etc. But yeah, hopefully this year will feel a bit more normal again, which will be nice.
Thanks very much for talking to us, and enjoy the show.
Very much for that. And coming up soon, we've got Paul Kiddell, our flying adventurer, who provides some of the most regularly provides inspirational copy and flyer. And I have to say, great fan at Paul. So looking forward to speaking to him with Ed shortly. But in the meantime, we've got a little stand visit with Bose, so you can learn all about Bose before you go and enter the Poolies competition on the Poolies page. See if you can't win yourself a pair of 820s with Bluetooth. So let's have a look at Bose. Hello, Theodora. Thank you very much for joining us from the Bose virtual booth. I wonder if I could just ask you to tell us what's going on at Bose today. What are you offering us?
Hi, Ian. Thanks for having me as an exhibitor at this show. So what we have today, and this is the product I am wearing, is the Bose A20 aviation headset. And next to me, I have the ProFlight Series 2.
Thank you. If I were coming to your virtual stand or one of your dealers or one of your stands at a real show, whenever we can have those again, and I was kind of saying, okay, so you've got the A20 and the ProFlight Series 2. Which should I be wearing? What are the advantages and pros and cons of them?
So they're very different headsets. First of all, I would ask you what type of aircraft you fly. And then depending on your needs, I would make you try, of course, the 2 headsets, and then you decide for yourself. But what I can recommend to a General Aviation pilot is the A20, which I'm wearing. It's an around here headset, so it provides a greater noise attenuation. So the ProFly Series 2, designed for commercial pilots, where it's more for airline and corporate flight deck. So the noise reduction is a little bit lower than the A20. It's a digital active noise reduction with 3 levels, so you can customize according to your needs, and has a tap control, so allows you to decrease and talk easily with your co-pilots, left and right side.
So Theodora, tell me, how much do these headsets cost?
Good question. Going to give you the price in British pound. So for the ProFlight, the price with the Bluetooth is £960, and for the A20 headset with the Bluetooth again is 999 British pound. So indeed, a premium aviation headset comes at a cost. And what's behind this? So I would first come to the technology side. We have been on the aviation market and producing, commercializing aviation headsets for the past 30 years. So there's a lot of research and development investment. And from that, we have developed products ever more with more features, more performance, a greater ANR. Aside from this technology, the R&D side, we are proposing to the customers a certified headset, EASA and TSO certified. So that comes very handy for commercial pilots. We also offer, when you purchase the product, a 5 years global warranty offer with your product. And it's also because of all the certification we undergone and all the testing, it's a very robust headset. So you can fly many hours, and the product is long-lasting and offers you a great flying experience.
And can you tell me about the warranty?
Yes, our products are coming with a 5 year global warranty.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully people will come and visit your stand, visit the dealers, and go and try some Bose headsets for themselves.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Hello. So joining us tonight to talk about cost-effective flying is Flyer Magazine's regular flying adventurer, Paul Cadell. Paul, welcome to Flyer Live.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Ian. Good evening, Ed. Good evening, team.
So obviously some of our viewers will know Paul for many brilliant flying adventures around the UK, which have appeared in Flyer over the last 6 years and are always fun to read and beautiful to look at. Paul, I think I'm right in saying that you managed about 150 hours a year in a good year, and you managed that on a pretty tight flying budget. How did you get that? How did that get started?
Yeah, well, 150 hours is about right. For me, really, it all started. I grew up in Frimley, which was near Farnborough, and in the 70s, you know, who could fail to be inspired by the amazing Farnborough air shows of the time? Absolutely wonderful. And from there, I really got into aviation. One day, you know, I could maybe see myself being an RAF pilot like everyone else. And from there, I went on to hang around Blackbush quite a lot. And at the time, Doug Arnold had Warbirds of Great Britain, and we'd you know, on a weekly basis, we'd have Spanish-built Heinkel 111s and Junkers 52s, and Spitfires and Sea Furies, and Neil Williams would be flying around the patch in a Booker Youngmeister. It was just fantastic. I was very lucky at the time as a teenager, make some good friends there. And then one day, a guy called Mike Smith, who used to fly Aeromark, came over, had a good chat with us, took us flying his Grumman Tiger. Well, that was it. That was absolutely fantastic. Finally ended up leaving Frimley and joined the Air Force, had a long career in the Air Force. And one of my best friends from Blackbush, Nigel Hitchman, I used to fly with him regularly. He's still got a Piper J3 Cub that's been recovered as we speak. Yeah. And he has an RV6 that he co-built with Mr. Ed Hicks and his late great father. So I managed to tour, keep the flying going, tour around the UK and Europe with Nigel. But having, like a lot of people, I guess, having a young family, limited time, charging around with the Royal Air Force, doing stuff, I never really got around to learn to fly. 2011, wind on 2011, left the Air Force, retired to wonderful Northumberland with all its beaches and castles. And I thought, you know, now's the time. Kids are a bit older and not stealing so much money of my money. And I went down to Eschol, which is it's an old Spitfire training unit from World War II. and it's 15 minutes south of here, between here and Newcastle. And I had a trial lesson in an Avector Eurostar. By the way, Ian, you won Fantasy Hangar. That was an easy one.
Thank you.
And it was an absolute revelation. It really was. The handling, the performance, you know, it was getting off the ground in seconds. During my flying training, we went to loads of local grass strips. And it was doing all this, you know, 95 miles an hour at 10 litres of unleaded from Tesco's an hour. And I was hooked. And that was 10 years ago in November. I got my license, and 1,300 hours later, every time I fly, it's like Mike has come over the fence and said, come flying in the Grumman Tiger.
That's amazing. Cool. What's the secret to doing that many hours in a year?
I think being part-time and having a very understanding wife. But really, micro-lighting, I think, really gives you maximum fun at minimum cost. Our group pays £35 an hour. Maybe we could break that down a bit more later. £35 an hour wet, that includes pretty much all our maintenance. So, you know, you can go for, as Ian said, you can go, and Dave said earlier, when you're paying that sort of money, if you go for a weekend trip and do 10, 12 hours, you're not breaking the bank. You really don't have to worry about it financially. Yeah. And so last year, being part-time, I don't think it's so much about the hours you do. I think it's the quality of your flying. And last year I visited, I think, 85 fields and strips last year with amazing friends. And micro-lighting is very sociable. So often we go off in a gaggle, you know, we have some real characters in there. It's almost like Viz Magazine Live, you know, some of the guys that come with us. And so, yeah, I don't know, brown bottle probably. But and I think that's the secret to it. We tend to chase the weather. We don't plan too far in advance. And most of our trips, like the one that's in this month's Flyer magazine, to the west coast of Scotland, you know, it was great forecast on the BBC 6 o'clock news. Ring a couple of people, ring Roger down in Yorkshire, fancy coming, let's go. And as Ian says, you know, we're so sport with technology now, with SkyDeem, you could plan a trip in very, very short order.
Yeah. And your Eurostar group, how did you find that particular aeroplane, and how do you run that as a group?
Yeah, it's a great little aeroplane. It's 2008 model. Our friends in Leicester had it, and it was built, and ever since it was built by Cosmic, who used to be the dealer, it's been maintained by Chris Theakston, who's a bit of a guru, but he's the UK Eurostar expert. And now he actually builds for Flylight at Sywell as well. He builds a Sky Ranger range and the Ninjas and everything, the factory built ones now. So he's a great guy. So we knew it was going to be top-notch aeroplane. We knew the guys very well. They were moving on to a painted Eurostar SL, a red one. So they come with us on trips now. You know, they're a bit heavier, they're a bit Captain Slow's adventures, you know. So we got it off them.
Is that a Eurostar Luscombe?
Sorry?
Is that a Eurostar Luscombe?
Exactly. It's like, where the hell are they? You know, you're looking over your shoulder all the time. And yes, sorry. So there's four of us in our group. Alex, who's a real techie, he's always fiddling with his motorbike, you know, and doing techie stuff. He enjoys the maintenance side. Steve Biglands, who was a Victor pilot in the Falklands. If you've read 607, he's the guy whose probe snaps off trying to refuel in a thunderstorm. So he's a great guy to have in the group. CFI, so he can teach us stuff. And Charlie's an ex-copper. I'm not too sure what he does really. He sort of looks after the security of the hangar and stuff. So a really, really tight, nice group. And we pay £35 an hour, and that includes our fuel, that includes all our scheduled maintenance, and it includes a sinking fund for our engine, the Rotax 912 being pretty bomb-proof, and also a SPA fund. At 4,000 hours, we have to take it back to check and have the SPA, carry through SPA, replaced at a cost of about 10 grand. So £35 an hour, absolutely fantastic. And by linking all these costs to the hourly rate, because generally it's me who flies it the most, you know, I'm paying the most to replace everything. And I think that works well and avoids any you know, dispute generally.
Yeah. So do you need a good group structure as well? Is that when you go into owning an aeroplane with a whole bunch of people, you need some good rules and kind of some agreements between yourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best piece of advice I ever got was, get some group rules together. And there's some really good ones. BMAA, the LAA have some really good examples. Get that together. And hopefully it will just sit in the corner gathering dust. But if you ever do need it, you've got that to go back to. And I think that's very, very sound advice indeed. We use an online booking system, but generally we're flying together and talking. Today we've been down overhauling the brake system. We had the bacon sandwiches on outside the hangar with my little Coleman stove, and it's just a nice day out. And I think, it is cheap flying because you've got owner maintenance as well. So you can do as much maintenance as you feel comfortable with. We do quite a lot, but for the bigger stuff, we take it down to Chris, and he's our inspector too. He's both BMAA and LAA, fantastic font knowledge. And we are very lucky in the UK having so many professional Rotax engineers and microlight engineers. And they're all cheaper hourly rate in the local garage. We've got some great experience out there.
How many, so between the four of you, how many hours does the aeroplane do a year?
About 350.
Wow.
So it's just come up to its 3,000 hour actually. So we'll have to, it's a bit of a pain with you. So you've got to drill the seat pans out. That's what the factory want. Examine the spar, rivet them back in again, and Chris will do all that for us. And he's such a quick worker. He'll do it in a day. And then in 4,000 hours, we'll have to take it back to check. But it does a lot of flying, and it's generally always serviceable.
And in terms of buying an aeroplane, obviously the Eurostar, it's got good dealer support, hasn't it? And you can find parts easily.
Yeah, very much so. We are lucky. I mean, it shows how popular are. There's probably about 200 classics in the UK, just under, and residuals in the last 3, 4, 5 years, they've gone up. They've firmed up. So people are paying more now. Well, they're selling them. They're selling them for more than what they paid 5 years ago, which is interesting. So they're in huge demand. Great little aeroplane. But I think microlighting now is such a broad church. You probably see the little cartoon on the back wall. I had a Fokker Eindecker SSDR with a Briggs & Stratton lawnmower engine. I had that with a couple of partners, and sounded like a 2-stroke Harley. It's absolutely wonderful. So you've got things like that now, and now in the coming weeks we're going to be at 600 kilo for microlights, and it's going to solve a lot of payload issues. The new Eurostar that I'm sure Ian's going to enjoy test flying, 600 kilo. It can carry 2 15-stone blokes with 25 kilos of luggage and have 9 hours of fuel on board. I mean, that's okay. It's expensive, but again, the group will make it affordable.
Yeah. And if you buy, chatting with the guys earlier about owning older aeroplanes versus owning new aeroplanes. The older aeroplanes often come with the problems of being older, parts are rarer, more difficult to get hold of. Obviously, if you buy a new aeroplane, it does come with a degree of you've got the security of knowing it's a new aeroplane. You can get hold of parts easily, all that kind of thing. So
I think one of the things the Eurostar does really well, and a lot of aircraft like it, is you've got that balance between the capital expenditure of buying this aeroplane, which is a chunky amount of money, which, if you can part it out between 4, 5 and 6 people who get on well, that kind of reduces that. And then the operating expenditure, which is, and it is, you can go out and buy a relatively old, relatively cheap, big bore engine aircraft for not a huge amount of money, but you probably in some cases, you'll spend that same amount of money almost every year, just in terms of maintenance and fuel and insurance and stuff like that. And so I'm a big believer in trying to get the OPEX rather than the CAPEX down. The CAPEX, it's, I don't want to say that an airplane's an investment, but as Paul said, a lot of the prices are even going up. So if you buy the right aircraft, you shouldn't lose too much in terms of the capital, although you do have to find it in the first place. But to have OPEX that's affordable is a real boon. To be able to go, I'm going to go away for the weekend and fly is great. There are aircraft which I'd love to fly for the weekend, but I look at them and go, if I'm going to have to pay £300, £400, £500 an hour for that aircraft or that helicopter, that's a chunk of money. And I don't have that amount of money to go and go, I'll stick 5, 6, 7, 8 hours on it. Whereas if you're paying 35 quid an hour or whatever it is, then it's much easier, isn't it? So I think finding that right level and the sweet spot of the Eurostar for you is you've managed to do amazing flying over some amazing places for a really kind of low cost, which is, absolutely what it's all about. That's why I find you so inspirational, Paul. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Ian. It's very, very, very nice to me tonight. We won the Fantasy Sea Hangar, and thank you for you. That's very kind, mate. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, and I mean it. I'm being genuine.
Yeah, I think I'm right in saying that in all this flying, you've given a couple of hundred people first flights, maybe even more.
I think I'm on 233, which COVID has sort of held up a bit. So they all get over an hour generally. They all have a go. And 5, what is absolutely massively rewarding to me, 5 have gone on to learn to fly.
That's brilliant.
And that's people in the village, people, just random people I know. But yeah, 5 have gone to learn to fly. And that to me is fantastic. Because I still remember Mike at Blackbush, It's easy to be the other side of the fence, isn't it? Be like Mike.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest things, that if you fly and you've got the opportunity to give someone a ride who's never flown before, probably one of the best things you can do for general aviation and the sport is just to give someone who wasn't expecting it a flight, because you never know, but they'll definitely be a fan of it, but you might create, in doing so, you create another pilot.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. Brilliant. Okay.
Great. Well, I think we're all.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's been absolutely fantastic, and keep on flying, keep on writing.
Yes.
You too. Cheers.
Good.
Hi.
Johnny, what have you got for us?
Yeah, so if for those of you who are interested in building an aeroplane and want a realistic idea of what it would take in terms of time, space, and energy, I spoke to retired A380 captain and all-round good bloke, Steve Hicks, to talk about his home build setup for his RV. Hello, Steve, and thanks for joining us on Fly Alive. It looks like you've got your hands full at the moment with an exciting project in the background. Can you just start by telling us a bit about yourself and what you're building?
Hi, John. Yeah, well, extremely pleased to be here. About me, then, I've been a pilot all my life, really. Always interested in aeroplanes. Started, I guess, the first thing was making model aeroplanes, the usual stuff, killcraft and all that lot. Then hang gliding, and then actually got taught to fly by the Air Force at the University Air Squadron, which was great. And then joined the RAF, was in the RAF for just under 9 years, and then left to become an airline pilot. And I've recently retired, actually. What with all this COVID thing, I thought it was probably time to let the youngsters get on with it. And as you say, I've got a big project on here, so I could do with the time.
Brilliant. Yeah, so just explain what you're building.
Well, I'm building a Vans RV14. Those of you listening that know about kit planes will undoubtedly have heard of Vans. They've made lots of aircraft over the years. And the RV14 is sort of the latest version of some of their other aircraft. It's a side-by-side seater, slightly bigger than their earlier versions, the RV6 and RV7.
Sounds good. Great. So just tell us a bit about actually preparing, and tell us about your workshop.
Yeah, well, I think if you're going to make something like this, you've got to accept the fact that it's going to take a long time. I mean, I've been building it since October 17, so that's a fair while. And I've probably got about another year to go, actually. So you've got to make a place to build it that you want to go to and spend a lot of time in, because it is going to take a lot of time.
I can imagine. Can you give us a quick tour and walk around your workshop so we can see what it looks like?
This is an example of the workbench. There are lots of examples online, actually, of how to do this. So I can't claim I designed it. I just used other people's best practice. It's got certain features that you find useful. For instance, it's quite high. And the reason for that is you can stand at it and you don't sort of get a crick in the back. So you need to tailor the height of the workbench to so that you're comfortable working. So I built one workbench, and then I built another one because when you've got the wings are quite long. I built lots of storage space, shelves, as you can see here. And at the top there, that's an example. That's the fin. That's the first bit you actually build there.
Yeah.
So that's the first bit. The second bit is the rudder.
Yeah.
And then you make the tailplane. So then you can see I've stored this away at various places. That's the tailplane. And then on the other side, up there, are the elevators, all stored away.
Yeah.
And then all that comes actually in the first part of the kit, together with the rear end of the fuselage.
Yeah.
So you make this bit here at the same time. That comes in the first bit of the kit. You'll see at the moment, I've got this fuselage on its side. And the reason I've done that is because when it gets to this stage, you're trying to install systems and things. It's much easier to be able to stand as I'm doing now and work on it. And you can probably make out all those horrible wires. I've got a cat's cradle there at the moment.
Yes.
I'm trying to do the avionic installation.
Yeah.
Which is it's taken a lot of planning actually. Here are the wings. Obviously, when you've built them, you need somewhere to put them, and so I've made a trolley. Lots of people making these planes make a trolley for the wings, and you put it on wheels, then you can move it about the workshop.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done here. And I got this from an idea online as well. Some chap had made a workstation on wheels. And I thought that was a good idea. And I'm glad I've done it because it's helped a lot, actually.
Yeah, that looks really good.
So I've got a pillar drill. I've got the grinding wheel. I've got a bandsaw. It's a woodworking bandsaw, but I've changed the blade to a metalwork blade.
Right.
And that cuts through the aluminium brilliantly. And then I've got a vertical sander, which you probably don't need really, but I found it pretty useful.
So if you could give one or two bits of advice to people who are thinking about building an aircraft, what would they be?
Well, the first thing, I guess, is if you've got an inkling to do it, just do it, because I've learned so much. I mean, it is an educational thing to do. I think probably the first bit of advice is don't think building an aeroplane's a way to get a cheap aeroplane, because it's not. Effectively, you're building an aeroplane, and eventually one day you'll sell it, and somebody will get an aeroplane that is built, but they haven't paid for your time to build it. I mean, having said that, the Vans aircraft are sort of quite good value at the moment. They seem to be getting good prices for the people that are selling them. But I think, you've got to have the right motive. And certainly if you're going to build, you need to want to build as well as fly. Because you can't, it takes so long. Well, it certainly does to make one of these, of the aircraft I'm making. It takes so long that you'd be frustrated if you wanted to get out and fly it after the first week. It's a long-term project. And I think you need to take each little job as a project in itself. So when you finish an aileron bell crank, you think, oh, that's good. I've made an aileron bell crank tonight. Don't think, think about all of the work that's left, because it'd just be a bit demoralizing. Have somewhere to make it. I mean, I'm very fortunate here. I mean, I moved in here especially to get an outbuilding, and it's great. I've had loads of space here, but you don't need all this space that I've got. People have made these things in double car garages and things like that. But what I would say, the priority would be to have a place to build it, preferably outside the back door of your home. But if not, within a very short distance, because you're going to spend a lot of time constructing it, and you want to be able to sort of pop out and do half an hour if you can. Whereas if you've got a journey to get there, you'll never do that.
Right.
And that brings me to the other most important aspect, is have the support of your partner. because you are going to spend a lot of time in the workshop, and your partner's got to be up for it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, just be realistic about the time it's going to take, and then add a bit more. A lot of the kit manufacturers say, "Oh, you can make this in, 1,500 hours or whatever," and you sort of work out how many hours you can do a week, and then it comes out, "Well, I can build it in 18 months." Maybe double it or something like that. Just be realistic about the time. But it's a great thing to do. I mean, I've enjoyed it. It's a great challenge, and you learn lots of new skills and make lots of friends. I've made loads of friends over the last 4 or 5 years talking about this project and finding out how they're doing it and things like that.
Brilliant. Great. Well, no, that's all fantastic advice. So thanks very much for joining us, and we'll maybe see your aircraft flying again soon.
Well, let's hope so. Come and have a go in it when it's finished.
I'd love to, yes. Great. Thank you, Steve.
All right, John. Bye.
Oh. Well, that looks like a big undertaking. And for those of you who want to know more, we'll publish the full interview with Steve next week on our YouTube channel. So keep a lookout for that. Have any of you guys flown a 14 before?
Yeah. I was lucky enough to fly 14 over at the Vans factory in Oregon. It was 14A nose wheel, but it was dark, so nobody saw me. So I think that was okay.
That was a long time ago now, wasn't it? 6 or 7 years.
Was it that long ago?
Really,
Wow.
It really was. Yeah, it's taken that long to get. Obviously, the first UK 14 flew here. You were at the first flight along with me in July last year, built by Bill Sweetnam. It really was that long that we were in Oregon flying the aeroplane. I went back a few years later and flew the Tailwheel RV-14, equally a lovely aeroplane, much prettier though.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. It's interesting, and I think Dave made a comment on the post. Dave and a few others that I've seen in the comments have all said, "I wouldn't trust an airplane I built myself." I can't. I'm not sure about that. I reckon the whole build process, particularly if you build with friends and a supportive inspector, not that I've ever built a whole airplane, it's got to be a good thing, and probably within everyone's reach. I would have said.
It's easier than you think, and modern kits really are fantastic. And you will, I've built 2 aeroplanes in my time, and you will get to the end of the build and still have bits left on the shelf and go, I wonder where those should go.
Yes, I've done that, rebuilding my Alpha Classic car. I had a pile of bits to do with brakes on the shelf.
Oh, that's not good.
It wasn't very good.
A pile of rust.
There's no
rust. Modern home building is really well evolved, and especially with the LA Inspector network, and they've got a whole bunch of training as well. You can't go wrong.
I have to say, I do fancy building an aircraft in my future. If I would desperately like to have the time, money, and space to build an aircraft. So maybe one day. I still quite fancy a little Panther.
Oh yeah, absolutely, love that.
There's a whole story there. We'll be talking more about the Panther I think it's on Friday, isn't it? When we're talking about the air-to-air shoot.
Yep.
So we're going to use the Panther as an example. So if you want to know more about the Panther, tune in on Friday. But you need to be a member to do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, there you go.
Yeah, so next up, I speak to Brian Kane, who's the Sales and Marketing Director for BEA Heliair Robinson UK, to find out more about their company. Well, Brian, thank you very much for joining us here on Fly Alive. For those viewers who don't know, can you just tell us a little bit about the background of Heliair?
Hello, Johnny. Good morning. Yes, I'm Brian Kane, Sales and Marketing Director at BEA Piper and Heliair Robinson. We have both the Robinson helicopter dealership for the UK and the Piper aeroplane dealership for the UK, Ireland, Isle of Man, Channel Islands, Spain and Portugal. Heliair has been with Robinson since the mid-1980s and BEA has been Piper since January 2018. We currently have 4 bases. Our head office is at Wellesbourne near Stratford-upon-Avon. Our main base is at London Wickham Airport, just by junction 4 of the M40, which BEA owns and operates. We also have substantial bases at both Gloucestershire Airport near Cheltenham and within Thruxton Aerodrome near Andover in Hampshire. A 5th base is due to open in the south soon, but more of that later. We train pilots for both PPL and CPL at all of the bases. We also have an ATPL ground school at Wickham Air Park. We service and maintain over 120 helicopters and a similar number of airplanes, all at Wickham Air Park. Our helicopters vary in cost from £150,000 for a used R22 to 1.2 million US dollars for a new R66. And the Piper aeroplanes vary from 480,000 US dollars to 3.5 million US dollars for the M600 SLS.
Tell us about the rotary training services that you offer for viewers who might be interested in learning to fly helicopters.
Yes, of course, Johnny. Heliair trains students for the PPLH and CPLH at all 4 of its bases: Wellesbourne, Wickham, Gloucester and Thruxton. Across the company, we have over 20 instructors and a similar number of helicopters for pilot training. Most new students choose to learn in the Robinson R22 2-seat, and then when licensed, move on to the 4-seat R44 or 5-seat R66 turbine. Some students do complete the PPL in an R44 or an R66, but that's reasonably rare. The PPL course itself requires a minimum of 45 hours flight tuition, which includes 10 hours flying solo with a qualifying cross-country flight of 3 legs, at least 100 nautical miles. Most students take between 50 and 60 hours to complete the PPL course. After the PPL, if a student wants to go on to complete the CPL course, the commercial course, a total of 155 flight hours needs to be logged before that course can start. Heliair has aircraft a student can self-fly hire to achieve this, and we regularly need a helicopter position from one base to another, maybe for maintenance or other training work. For these flights, we frequently invite an hours builder to conduct the flights at a very reduced cost. Heliair sells all models within the Robinson range, including the R22, the R44 and the R66, both new and pre-owned. Heliair has held the Robinson dealership since the mid-1980s. Booker Aviation, also at Wickham Air Park, trains students for the PPLA and CPLA, plus we have a full-time ATPL course which runs for 6 months commencing each October. At BEA Piper, based within Wickham Air Park, we have a team to assist airplane buyers, both new and used, for the UK, Ireland, Isle of Man, Channel Islands, Spain and Portugal. The Piper trainer range, collectively known as the PA28, is very popular. The twins are excellent, but the top of the range M-Class 600 SLS is a truly amazing aeroplane. It's a single engine turbine using the excellent Pratt & Whitney PT6. The M600 can cruise at 275 knots up to 30,000 feet, way above the nasty weather, but below the airliners. It's air conditioned and of course pressurized. We have 3 M600s in the BEA Piper fleet. We also have the M600 on our AOC for charter flights from Wickham, Gloucestershire Airport and very soon Southampton. The M600 is a 6-seater with 4 passenger seats in the cabin in club style. It's a superb way to travel across the UK and well into mainland Europe. All the contact details for Heliair Robinson and BEA Piper are on the Fly Alive webpage, and we welcome inquiries of any nature, be they aircraft sales, pilot training or engineering.
Brian, thank you very much for joining us on Fly Live.
Enjoy the show.
So earlier we heard from Light Aircraft Association CEO Steve Slater about what the LAA can offer its members. I also had an opportunity to talk to Steve about what their plans are for 2021, their 75th anniversary year. Hello, I'm talking to Steve Slater from the LAA Chief Executive Officer. Steve, LAA is 2021 is a really big year for LAA, isn't it? Can you tell us why and what you have planned?
Yes, well, it's our 75th anniversary. It was back in 1946 that the Ultralight Aircraft Association was formed. We then changed our name a few years later to the Popular Flying Association, and then ultimately to the Light Aircraft Association, which is where we are now. And we're celebrating our 75 years by a series of events around the country, bringing our message of flying for fun, I hope, to as many people as possible. And we start that with a round Britain tour for LAA members. We were going to do a much bigger tour, but we were a little bit concerned about the continuing COVID situation. So we've made it a bit more of a mini tour now. It's actually really covering England principally, starting off at Henstridge in Somerset on the Sunday, the 4th of July. And then it'll be a week-long tour heading down into Cornwall, up to Northumberland, and heading back to Leicester, which is one of the traditional homes of the Popular Flying Association and the LAA rallies of years gone by. So it's a really interesting little tour and event. We're also going to be doing some Meet the Members events at Full Sutton in Yorkshire, and at other locations, Headcorn in Kent, a little bit later on in the year as well. And our biggie, of course, is the LAA Rally. The LAA Rally is Britain's biggest fly-in event, in fact, Europe's biggest fly-in event in recent years. We might have as many as 1,000 aircraft flying in, plus exhibitors. And we've been working really hard on our planning for the 3rd to 5th of September at Sywell Aerodrome, working with Sywell Aerodrome people to ensure that the marquees are going to be COVID-friendly. They're going to be of a different design to previous years, so we won't be clustering people into tents. And we've come up with a COVID-friendly program, which we think will be viable and sustainable, and we'll be looking forward to meeting everybody on the 3rd to 5th of September.
Fantastic. In previous years, there's been a theme, I guess, is the big theme 75 years of LAA?
It is. We're hoping to get some aircraft actually from the very earliest days of the Ultralight Aircraft Association, vintage types such as the Curry Watt, the Luton Miner, and various other interesting aircraft, some of the earliest Drouin turbulent aircraft, because the French were actually ahead of us at the end of the Second World War in starting amateur building and flying for fun. And Roger Drouin was a very good friend in the early days of the Ultralight Aircraft Association. So we'll have a lineup, I think, of the Drouin turbulent and Turby aircraft. We'll also have Taylor monoplanes. John Taylor was another man who was a real pioneer of building aircraft, including his first prototype aircraft, which he built in a first floor flat in Dagenham in Essex, and borrowed the local fire brigade's ladders to get it out of the bay window.
That's fantastic. I have seen photos of that. I think people will be a little bit familiar with that, and it's amazing. In terms of vendors, who will people? I guess there'll be a real variety of people to see at the rally.
Yes, in terms of trade vendors and exhibitors, we are going to probably now be the biggest single aviation event in the United Kingdom this year. And we're already finding we've got exhibitors phoning us saying, please, can we come? We're actually probably going to struggle to accommodate them all because we have to open up the tents to allow sufficient spacing. But we're actually looking at some other activities. I can't name the keynote speaker that we're hoping to have on the Saturday evening, for example, but I'm hoping it's going to be somebody who's going to be a really interesting person. If not, we'll have Ian Seeger along. And we'll be having quite a big party, I think. It's going to be, we missed an LAA rally last year thanks to COVID. We're not going to plan to miss this one, and we're going to make it one party to celebrate flying for fun.
Fantastic. And I think for Fly Alive, LAA has a special member offer on the go.
We do indeed. We were trying to work out what we can do with the permutation of the number 75, but we won't try to do that. What we will do is we will say, if you want to join and you're a new member and you join this week, you'll get your membership for £30. And that's less than half price for a normal annual membership. And for that, you'll get the full year's worth of our Light Aviation magazine. And in fact, if you join at Fly Alive in the June magazine, we'll also have a special LAA 75 yearbook exclusive to the membership, and that'll be included with your June magazine. So we're offering not only a free book, we're offering a free year's worth of magazines, all for 30 quid.
Fantastic. And I think that's LA membership brings you discounted entry to the rally?
It does indeed. You're going to get into the rally at less than half price. And also, if you're an enthusiast and want to go airside and get around the parked aircraft as they come in, that will give you complimentary airside access as well, although you can pay for an airside pass on the day.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for joining us, Steve, and we'll look forward to all that the LA has to offer in its 75th anniversary year, and we'll see you at Sywell.
Look forward to it. See you there.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Bye-bye.
Right. Hello, Steve Boxall. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to be talking about gyrocopters now. Steve, I thought we could start off. Just tell us a bit about your Autogyro background.
Well, I used to be a balloon pilot for many years, and so but I was looking for something that was less dependent on people and had a much wider weather window. And so back in the late 90s, I actually bought a little kit, built myself a single-seat gyroplane in the garage, because that's about all that you could do at that time. Learned how to fly it, which was an adventure in itself. Flew that for a few years. In 2006, I was the first person in the UK to own one of the new generation factory-built gyroplanes. Got my instructor rating shortly after that, and it's been downhill ever since then.
Fantastic. So can you just start off with a bit of an explanation about the principles of an autogyro?
Sure. Well, an autogyro, as most people know, it's got a rotating wing rather than a fixed wing. But the rotating wing of the gyroplane is driven by the airflow through it rather than being driven by the engine like in a helicopter. So typically got a propeller behind you, which is providing the thrust for the aircraft, and the lift is provided by the rotating wing with the airflow going through it. What that gives you is all the benefits of rotary wing flight. So the gyroplane is very maneuverable. It's great in turbulence. It's got quite a short takeoff and landing distance, but without the complication that comes typically from an aircraft like a helicopter. So we've got the simplicity of a lightweight sport aircraft with a lot of advantages of rotary wing flight, and of course a much lower cost than something like a helicopter.
Brilliant. So just briefly talk us through how people can get into flying autogyros.
Okay, well, there are gyroplane schools all over the country. So you can either find them online. I'm part of a network called the Gyrocopter Experience, which is a group of independent flying schools which all work together. So you can find us online. But the thing to do really is just to book yourself an experience flight with a gyroplane instructor. Find out what it's all about. Obviously, you get a chance at the control, learning how to fly. It's a very, very different way of flying. So aeroplanes, they're great fun. They're good for going places, but gyroplanes are all about flying lowish and slowish and really seeing what's going on. So an aeroplane, you've got fantastic visibility. There's nothing in the way to block your view. There's no wings or anything like that. If you're an open cockpit gyroplane, that's an incredibly engaging way to fly. You get an awful lot of feedback from the airflow, from the sounds and that sort of thing. And of course, you've got an amazing view. If you're not into open cockpit flying, then we've got the modern enclosed gyroplanes as well. They're comfortable. They are a much more comfortable, more airplane style of flying. But again, you've got great visibility without the wings in the way. And the things that bring people to gyroplanes are really the wind can operate in for that class of aircraft. We're not blown back by turbulence in the same way that an aeroplane is, so we can fly in all sorts of weather, and they're just huge fun to fly.
Great. So the students that you teach, are they coming from other types of flying, or are they coming straight into autogyros?
So it's probably about 50-50. We get quite a lot of people coming in from fixed wing, and my polite's a handful from helicopters, and about 50%, I guess, are forward ab initios. I guess for us, it's quite important to get somebody who's never flown before. Almost everyone who comes through the door, they've done a bit of gliding when they were younger. They've had an Air Cadets flight, maybe in a chipmunk or a bulldog. So most people have done some type of flying, but yeah, in training terms, we're about 50% ab initios in the conventional sense, and about 50% coming from other forms of flight. Again, I guess as a flying instructor, as a flying school, that's a relatively unusual scenario to be in. To get so many qualified pilots coming in through the door, and that's part of the fun. That we can help people explore a new form of aviation.
Great, and we heard earlier in the week from Rory Oscary about flying helicopters and the differences between fixed wing and rotary wing, and how often the hover taxi and hovering is the most difficult and challenging aspect of that. Is there a particular discipline within flying autogyros that is difficult?
Well, for most of my envelope, a gyroplane fly very much like a lightweight draggy aeroplane, and so you can fly it for most of the envelope like an aeroplane. It's around the edges that we're really different. And so, for example, slow flight, a gyroplane won't stall, so it remains controllable all the way down to 0 airspeed. In terms of things that are more difficult than flying an aeroplane, it's probably the takeoff. So if I was to be a bit flippant, I'd say an aeroplane takeoff is very much a case of you line up on the runway, full power and hang on. Whereas a gyroplane, what we've actually got to do is we've got to increase the speed, build up the speed of the rotors. So initially we do that using a temporary drive from the engine, a thing called a pre-rotator, which just temporarily connects the engine to the rotor to get the rotors speeding up before we start takeoff run. Once we start the takeoff run, we then need to manage the airflow through the rotor to build up the speed of the rotor blades until the aircraft is ready to fly off. That's distinctly different to what you need to do in an aeroplane, and it is part of the flight envelope that needs a bit more thought. The other thing, again, unlike an aeroplane, after landing, you've still got a huge amount of energy stored in the rotor blades. So after we've landed, while the rotor blades are slowing down, you've got to manage that as well. It's not a big deal, but you need to think about it. And so the flight hasn't finished until the rotor blades have stopped. So you've got a little bit more work to do after landing as well.
And briefly, just before we finish, what kind of costs are we talking about for learning to fly gyrocopters, and also hourly operating costs if you are an owner?
Sure. So gyroplane lessons, depending on the whether you're going in cockpit or for an enclosed gyroplane, there you're looking at around about 150 to 200 pounds per hour in the UK. The enclosed ones tend to be a bit more expensive than the open cockpit ones. In terms of running costs, well, most of the aircraft are operated by owner pilots or by smaller groups. I heard you talking earlier about the difference between sort of capital expenditure and operating costs. So gyroplanes, they're not cheap aircraft to buy. If you're buying one used, you're looking at something between about £80,000 and £120,000 typically for a new aircraft. But once you've got it, the incremental cost of putting the aircraft in the air is really quite low. So fuel, we're looking at typically 15 to 20 litres of MOGAS per hour. And maintenance costs are relatively low. So for an annual, it's typically £400 to £500, that sort of ballpark. So once you've got the aircraft, the mental cost of putting the aircraft in the air.
Great. Now, for people who want to explore a bit more, just talk us through your organisation. How can they get into flying autogyros?
Okay, so we work. So the PPL for a gyroplane is very similar to microlights, aeroplanes, that sort of thing. So all you need to do is find an instructor, get yourself booked in for a lesson, and start your flight training. It's as simple as that. The same as the flight training organisation. Helicopter experience, our organisation, like I said before, we're a national network of independent flying schools. So you can find us online, gyrocopterexperience.com. We've got about 10 locations around the UK, plus some overseas. And you can come and give gyroplanes a go. Like anything, come along, give it a go. Who knows,
Fantastic.
you might enjoy it.
Well, Steve, thank you very much for your time on Fly Live. It's been great talking to you.
And thanks for having me.
Wow. Yeah. Who's come on then? Who's done it? Who wants to do it?
I definitely want to do it.
I've done it.
Yep.
Wow.
I've been flown in one, and it was a modern Calidus, and that's the modern autogyros are just remarkable things.
Yeah,
So,
the slow flight thing was extraordinary. It almost feels like if you're about to drop out the sky, but in fact you don't, obviously.
And like Steve says, they're just not affected by bad weather. The day I flew, it was a Booker. There was a massive crosswind, and the autogyros were the only things flying.
Yeah. I flew from Longmynd with Jerry Speech in an open cockpit autogyro, and I don't know if you've ever been to Longmynd. When you leave the runway, you go off the edge of the hill, so the ground just falls away beneath you about 600 feet. So you go off the end of the runway, and you're immediately 600 feet off the ground, and that sort of takes your breath away a bit.
I'm undecided as to whether to sit on my hands at this point. Great. Okay. So I think you'll see that it's 6 minutes past 9, which means we've overrun by 6 minutes, which is not bad going compared to everything we had to put in tonight. So before we go, I just need to say a big thank you to Avionics, Bose, Garmin, Cirrus, Leading Edge Aviation, Mistral, Poulis, Bristol Ground School, and Textron Aviation. But a incredibly big thanks to all of you who have watched and commented and shared. So please come back tomorrow. We've got a whole load more stuff for you tomorrow. We've got a great interview on Friday. I say a great interview. Might not be great because it was me who did it. We've got an interview on Friday with Stevie Canivo from the US. He's the guy who flies the TBM 940 around. Got a great YouTube channel, so check it out on there. But you do need to be a member of the Flyer Club to come and participate on Friday. Don't forget, we've got competitions from Poulis. Go to the Poulis page to answer the question and enter there. Another competition from Garmin. Go to the Garmin page. And you still got this week to join the LAA for 30 quid. Never going to get a better offer. So thank you very much, Ed, Dave, Johnny, the team from Redison, Mark and Siobhan in the background. And we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much and good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.